Well, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. Don't forget, they are dedicating the Tranquility Garden at 5 o'clock today over at the Arneson Acres. This is a call to order of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of the City of Edina. We've got a special meeting this morning. We're going to be working and talking with some proposed development developers on proposed development opportunities over at the old Public Works site. But first, I'm going to ask, as I call the meeting to order, ask our Executive Director and our City Manager, Scott Neal, to call the roll.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioner Risser.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Agnew.
Here.
Chair Hovland.
Here. Now is the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And we've got a form of meeting agenda in front of us. Is there anyone who wishes to modify the meeting agenda? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved. I second.
Commissioner Agnew seconds. Commissioner Jackson moves the approval of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the meeting agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The meeting agenda is adopted. We're going to have a series of developer presentations this morning with respect to the potential use of the property owned by the city over at 5146 Eden Avenue, the old Public Works site, former Public Works site. And our first team is going to be starting here about right now. And I'm going to have our Community Development Manager, Director Bill Neuendorf, introduce them and start us off here with the assessment of all of the RFP proposers.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to do a very quick intro to set the context for our special meeting this morning. Over the past several months, we issued an RFP, a request for proposal, to solicit interest from the real estate development community in the area for the city's old Public Works site on Eden Avenue. So of that initial list, as a group, the HRA board narrowed the field and selected and invited 5 different development teams to learn more about. So we've invited each of those teams to join us this morning. We've told them they have 30 minutes to present their proposal and to answer your questions. So the way we have that structured is we expect a presentation about 15 minutes or so from the team, and that leaves about 15 minutes for questions and answers from you. We're striving to limit it to 30 minutes because we've got the next team scheduled to be here in 31 minutes. So it will be a revolving door this morning of presenters coming in and out. Our first team this morning, in no particular order, they were selected at random just to get the schedule put together. But it's a team made up of Hempel, Monarch, Jester Concepts, and Rocos Advisors. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the team to present their proposal and have some discussion with you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Neuendorf. Mr. Katter, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor Hovland and council members. Appreciate the opportunity to come up and talk to you. I have some notes. I'll refer to them. I just was laughing this morning. My notes are very difficult to read. I was on an airplane writing these last night, and we had a lot of turbulence, so bear with me a little bit here. But I'm real excited to be back in front of you on this site. We've assembled a team here that I think the real message here from our team is a number of principles here. I should step back. I'm the president of Hempel Companies here, 800 LaSalle Avenue. I'm a resident of West Edina. Our team here includes not only Hempel Companies, a local real estate firm, but Monarch Development Partners, another local development company that specializes in for sale housing in the Twin Cities here, and then Jester Concepts. If you're not familiar with them, they own and operate Starling Restaurant in Edina and a number of other restaurants in the Twin Cities. And this team is comprised of principals that have done thousands of units of for sale and for rent housing all over the Twin Cities. You can tell by looking at me, I've been in the business for quite some time, and I've literally developed probably 3,000 rental and for sale units in my tenure here in the Twin Cities. This team, again, many of its principals live in Western Edina, and I think our initial reaction in responding to this RFP is coming from a place of trying to help build this side of Edina out and create a neighborhood here, something special. It's got all the makings of a neighborhood with retail surrounding it, walkability, good access. There's some important things happening. You put a great roundabout, and I know Opus is proceeding with a project across the street. So it has the makings of a truly mixed-use area that's walkable, and that excites us. We also have on our team Pete Kostrowski as an advisor to us at Rocos. He's also an Edina resident, and so I think have many collective years of experience both in housing in Edina and as local residents here. Our plan highlights, we have proposed 70 for-sale townhome and condominiums here, and about 7,500 square feet of retail. And in this particular case, we believe that the for-sale product really meets what the market wants. I think you've seen this has been a very difficult time in the marketplace to deliver for-sale housing, and Edina doesn't really have a lot of available land left, so we think this is a really good opportunity to provide either a step up for people trying to get into Edina in a townhome setting, or maybe a step down out of a single-family home and into something as a transitional way to stay in Edina and turn over their single-family home. The retail here would be family-oriented restaurant, which is a nice blend. There's a lack of quality restaurants in West Edina anyways for the far West Edina residents. There's Olives over on the far edge of Edina here, and hopefully, and I know Brent will do something great here, but hopefully we can have the chance to put together something that's family-oriented in this side of Edina as a complement to Hilltop, which has done quite well through the years. We do plan to deliver 10% of our units to meet your inclusionary housing goal here, so that's 7 units out of the 70. Carl Runk here, who's the principal at Monarch, will talk a little bit more about the housing plan. As I said, we see ourselves working with you to create a small neighborhood here that is very desirable. I think it's a real opportunity. I'm a big fan of infill development. I've been doing it throughout my career here in the Twin Cities. I also want to make a point. Ownership here is obviously owner-occupied units. We think that's just a completely different feel than a renter neighborhood. It creates more ownership and sense of belonging for people. So we're excited about the energy that owner-occupied units would bring. And you'll note on our plan here, we get into the detail, we have really 7 clustered buildings, 6 of them are housing. And I want to just talk a little bit in my remaining time here about why. First of all, I was back on the site some time ago with a different firm I ran for years, looking at one large building. And this clustered approach allows us to deliver higher quality units in more units as a percentage of the total project. So imagine 6 buildings will have 24 corners versus one large building that would have 4 corners. That means a lot more units get 2 sides of glass, and we think that's really important. Wouldn't be as important in a rental situation, but in an ownership situation, people think about it. Their first home, they want something that isn't just a rental, basically feels like an apartment. So it really feels different to have 2 sides of glass in your ownership. It's very walkable, this neighborhood where you can walk up to your front door as opposed to walk in one main door, so it's more personalized with this cluster of buildings. A second thing I want to point out is there's a slope on this site, and our concept works with the slope as opposed to having to try to amalgamate a level grade and have a monolithic single structure on the site. So one of the most exciting things about this and our plan for me was to be able to build something that will have a broken up roof line, different looks, and generally be of high interest. And that's what homeowners are looking for. If it was delivered in one big format building, in our view, it would feel like a rental community. So just creates more of a neighborhood by breaking that up. And I definitely want to make the point, it also makes it easier to finance and phase than trying to deliver one large building. In today's environment with financing markets where they're at, it's very hard to pre-sell 50 to 60 units to close your financing. So we can build these projects 1 or 2 buildings at a time as we sell units up front and keep this project moving along. We have set aside green space in our plan, and we have also avoided access from Acadia Avenue. I frequently run through Acadia Avenue to Hilltop for breakfast in the morning. I probably see many of you there from time to time, and we don't want to exacerbate what it will probably be an increasingly busy road there as other developments proceed. Back to the restaurant, that's an integral part of the community. It creates another amenity on site. It creates some excitement and a reason to be here and a way for people to walk to and from their owner unit, either to this restaurant with Brent or across the street to Hilltop. He'll talk about that a little more. And my last point here before I turn this over is, this team does see ourselves being local, working with the city here. We're not a national developer coming in here to try to do it our way. We view this as a partnership, trying to put something together that works for the city as well. So I vow to you that we will be flexible, transparent partner with you and work with you to achieve your goals as well. So I'm going to hand this off now to Carl Runk. Carl is what I call a marvel at developing for-sale townhomes and condominiums. He's been doing many of these units in the western suburbs. He'll talk about that. With that, Carl would just step up and follow me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Catter. Before Mr. Runk starts, I just wanted to thank your whole team, as I will with every other team, for being interested in this site, being interested in Edina as a potential development area. And I think, it doesn't get lost on us that there's time and expense involved in all of these efforts on your part. And here you are competing with several other companies, other groups for potentially the redevelopment of this site. And we're greatly appreciative of everything that you all do to show your interest in being here and your creativity in that regard.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're passionate about this, and we see the potential of the Grandview site to be seen to fruition here. Again, I'm Carl Runk. I was going to flip to slide here. I'm just speaking about my own experiences in the owner-occupied development space. The most recent project I just opened 6 months ago. I was working really closely with the city of Excelsior to redevelop their city hall and parking lot site in their downtown. And that's the middle image, if you can see, where there's row house. It's broken into 7 buildings, not one building, with row homes and then apartment residences there in that case, and public parking and green space. And so it really took the scale down to fit in with that historic context of Excelsior, which is similar to what I did on the picture right below that of the townhomes and the North Loop Historic District in downtown Minneapolis by the river several years ago on that project called Maverick North Loop. And then condominium residences I have under construction right now in downtown Mound. You can see with that boat in front of it, those look like townhomes, but they're actually one-level living, because there's a lot of people looking at one-level lifestyle versus a 2-level or 3-level. And then the 11 condo tower, which was built on the riverfront by the Guthrie Theater a few years ago, was something I spent a number of years on to really understand the owner-occupied housing space.
Is that the city manager's boat out in Excelsior right above there?
Regarding our site plan that Bill was highlighting, I'll just echo some of the themes in here that, again, we're breaking this down, and there's 7 buildings proposed, and it steps up with a dramatic change in the height elevation, starting with an activated corner with Brent's Restaurant that really follows the guidelines of the district seeking to activate this area. And then 2 to 3-story townhomes that will line Arcadia on that side that are walk-ups. You can picture walk-up units. It's like brownstone type units. And then towards the north side of the site, 4-story condos with in between them a grand staircase and green space that connects to the Grandview pathway and over to the Grandview garage and Jerry's and all the retail and restaurants around here. So it's intended to be a village and very walkable. And there's a driveway that separates from the railroad berm that brings residents up from Eden to our motor court for a gracious sense of arrival to the lobbies in each of these buildings for residents. So we're still early in our process in terms of the exact floor plans and the exact unit sizes and types, but we are picturing a variety here that'll attract Edina residents seeking to downsize into either into a townhome as a step from a house or condos if they want one-level living. So we think we're appealing to a wide variety here. In terms of design, we're not into that yet. So if we're selected, we'll work with you and work with the market and realtors in Edina here to what exactly the tastes and preferences are for these finishes and floor plans to build to today's standards. And then like the precedent examples you see here are more of a modern amenity, modern aesthetic, and that might be the direction we take it, but it's too early to tell yet in terms of, open floor plans, oversized windows, there's a lot of things that we'll take into consideration here for maximizing daylight and quality of life for residents here. With that, I'll turn it over to Brent Frederick here.
On the housing, could you just comment quickly on how you accommodate the parking?
Yes, good point, Mayor. There's a parking deck proposed, but the slope of the site, it lends itself to having a parking deck that's one level with the homes and green spaces above that. So we're picturing private garage. You drive into these little driveways. You can see there on the left side where the driveway is, the main driveway, into private garages. And something I've done in my projects, all my condo projects and town projects, is even if it's a public garage, it feels like a concrete garage, you have private two-stall garages you go into as a homeowner. So we're picturing that you're driving into this and you drive into your personal garage and then upstairs to your unit or into the elevator to get to your unit in that case. But that preserves a lot of green space on that first floor. And that first floor really ties out with Arcadia Avenue more in terms of the elevation changes on the site is what we have in mind right now.
And there'd be tandem garages?
Not tandem, no, side-by-side stalls. In terms of
Well, each unit would have two garages?
each unit would
but
have
they'd
two
be
stalls,
side by
yeah.
side.
Yeah, that the market requirement is 2 stalls per unit for this type of product. In that case, that's what we would want to seek to deliver here with each townhome and each condo.
Does each one of those then require a curb cut onto Arcadia?
No, we're proposing 0 curb cuts on Arcadia. We're proposing that everyone enters off of a curb cut that's off of Eden Avenue there.
Okay.
That's next to the railroad berm, that you're driving up next to that railroad berm and entering into the different resident entrance points.
See that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it to Brent.
Okay. I'm happy to be quick. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brent Frederick, owner of Gesture Concepts. We own about 7 different locations throughout Minneapolis, Edina, and Excelsior. We are proposing a restaurant site here that has a nice patio. It has access to the public green space. While the patio might show kind of that southeast plan, I think there's potential to flip it more towards the public space. As you may or may not know, we were initially chosen for the original proposal of the site. We were in the middle of the site doing a restaurant pad. We had a lot of activation for the public space plan, programming for that. That still continues. We believe strongly in a green space, a public space as well. We believe that we have the parking as well to support this restaurant, as well as maybe somebody who wants to come walk their dog in that public space too. We also envision kind of a multi-concept restaurant site. While predominantly, I think most of the square footage will be taken up as a family restaurant. Concept still to be determined, but it'll be approachable and it'll be family friendly. But I think we also see a grab and go component here, maybe a smaller kind of square footage, maybe more of a bakery, maybe a coffee pastry spot, something for not just the residents in the area, but anyone in Edina to park, grab a pastry. We feel like this site is really walkable and you can walk within, as long as you're not walking on people's private property, but there is this kind of navigation throughout the space that existed in the old plan as well. So I think there were some elements we tried to incorporate from the old plan that most of you really enjoyed on the old site and the old plan. We incorporated them here. So I will answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Mr. Frederick. Questions for Mr. Frederick at this point in time? Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for this proposal. It's very interesting. With the restaurant, one of the things that we hear quite frequently is there's no place for teenagers to go. When you say family friendly, is that something that would you have some things at a price point where teens could go after a football game or if they want to go out in the afternoon?
Yeah, I have 2 kids at OLG and 1 at Benilde, so they were influential in speaking with me about this project a little bit. they go to Jerry's quite a bit, and they just walk up the hill, and they're like, Dad, can you build something just right there? I'm like, I'm sure we can incorporate something. So the family-friendly will be truly family-friendly. It'll be very approachable. I think we'd like to be open at least lunch through dinner and brunch, maybe breakfast. We'll just kind of see how that goes, but we're flexible at this time on what that concept would be. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else that you want to?
Yeah, I've got some more.
Yeah, I'll check with him if he has any other presenters.
Otherwise,
Kostrowski?
Your Honor, we're running about, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Pete Kostrowski. I'm the co-founder of Brokos Advisors. I've been doing commercial real estate advisory work here in the Twin Cities for almost 20 years. Born and raised in Edina. Now I'm raising 4 little girls about 1.5 miles from this site. I've worked with everybody on this team for a long period of time, helped Brent originally with the original Jester concept at the previous site as well. So just wanted to say our excitement for this site, how much it means to us and our community in particular, that this is something that we look at, most of us here being Edina residents, as a place that we want to make sure is right for a long-term success of the project as a whole. And I think our team, with everyone's background, is extremely well positioned to make sure that we're partnering with you and delivering what the city of Edina actually wants and needs, because it's directly affecting all of us as well too. So I'll answer any other questions as well. Otherwise, as a team, we can address any of the things that come up.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Kostrowski. Stand by, I think we'll probably have some questions. Commissioner Agnew.
Thank you, and thank you all for the presentation this morning. My question is more so when looking at the overall site. You talked about kind of being able to go building by building to phase into it. If you could walk through like which ones you would start with, and then as you're kind of tackling that approach, how would you pivot, or what would you think about as potentially a plan B if, you know, maybe the first 3 of the buildings get financed and purchased and market changes pivot?
Those are great questions, Commissioner Agnew. You know, my quick reaction to that is the site probably breaks up into 2 development pieces, the southern half with the restaurant and then the northern half. So I think a pivot could be something that's unique to, and I don't know if you can see where I point here, but I really think the first 3 residential buildings in the restaurant want to be developed as close as possible to the same time, and those may be second or first. I think we just have to get into those details. And then the north half of the site up against the walkway, that's an important connection. So there's an argument to start there first. But the short answer, it is going to probably be in phasing, probably 2 phases, and I'm not quite sure which phase goes first yet.
As a segue on that question, let's talk a little bit about the financing, the project summary, one of your pages. On your initial proposal, you had said that the total land purchase price would be $4 million. I'm assuming you're not thinking the city or the HRA would be paid in phases. It would be something that you would take down, purchase, and then you'd develop it as you described to Commissioner Agnew.
That's our intent, yes.
Okay. And you wouldn't need any public financing to make this work?
We've not asked for any.
All right. Commissioner Risser.
I just have one question, but first I want to point out what I really like. I love that there is no driveway off of Arcadia, since it's such a steep slope, and that was a big concern. So thank you for just having one driveway. I really appreciate the logic of having that along the railway. I think that makes so much sense. Really like the for sale units. I think that is so important and something that we need. When I first looked at the stairway going up, I love that connection. Part of me was thinking about all the slopey pathways that the original thing had. But the reality is that pathway across the pedestrian bridge only takes you to the upper deck of the Jerry's parking ramp. And you know, you can't really exit that space if you're pushing a stroller so there's something very honest about that, I think, and it sort of tees things up, like you need to be able to go upstairs. There's a lot that I really appreciate. I think the restaurant on the corner makes a lot of sense. I can see kids going there before school, after, whatever, depending on how it's open. The one question that I had is that in our initial sheet, it said time to close was 1 to 2 years, and then as I look at the information I'm getting today, a different chart said 1 to 3 years. And I'm thinking, does that just reflect kind of all the stuff going on now?
3 years would be far too long. Mayor Hovland said this really well. We'll have costs. We call them pursuit costs in our business, putting plans together and advancing through the city process. We don't want to pretend that we can move this quickly through the city process. I think it'll take some time to make this look and feel the way you want it all to feel. You own the site, so you're the significant stakeholder here as the landowner. So I think that's probably the better part of 6 to 9 months in that process. Could go a little longer with neighborhood meetings and such. And then I think after that, the project should start. So I would say 3 years would encompass at least the first phase being built and completed.
Great. And I thought I heard that there were opportunities for single floor living. Did I hear that correctly?
That's right. We thought a variety of home types is important here. So the condominiums on the north side, you see those two buildings, are single level condominium units for sale. The townhome units are 2 to 3 story vertical units in that way, multi-level living, like other new homes have been built around.
And then one last comment. I feel like you're really appreciating the site for what it is, and it is a very complicated site. I also feel like so often we get designs coming to us that appear to be in a bubble and don't acknowledge what's around it, and this really feels like it developed in a way that was informed by the context, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. That was our thinking on that.
And I think it's fair to say it took us some time to get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
We went through about 6 plans to get to something that we all felt good about.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you. So I want to kind of follow off that. So with the condominiums, I'm concerned about the slope. It's a funny site, and right now there's a big hole in the ground. So with the condominiums, will the parking be underneath so that you don't have to haul in a lot of earth to get it up to that walkway?
Correct, yeah. With the 38 feet difference from the south side, north side, there's a lot of elevation to work with to build the parking with the hole today, and then go vertical from there for the condominium units. And we do have in mind having walk-out units to the Grandview pathway with terraces and steps. So those residents who like that, you want to have dogs or pets that could walk right out to Grandview from their unit, is our idea on the condominiums on the north side.
Okay, terrific. And then a question I'm going to ask everybody, do you have an estimate of how much permeable surface is here?
At this time, Terry Menark, who's our landscape architect and urban planner, we haven't calculated that, but there's not as much hard surface here because of putting the parking underground beneath the townhomes and putting the green spaces above the sidewalks. So it really emphasizes, as you can see, a lot of green and landscaping in that case. But we could follow up if we're selected to tell you exactly the permeable versus impermeable.
Well, I'm glad you considered it. And I'm going to ask everybody that same question. So, all right, thank you very much.
Other questions from, yes, Commissioner Agnew. Back to you.
One clarification, just because of like the iconic picture you have here, all resident parking is tucked underneath without the ability to see kind of those individual garages. And the only like real surface parking or visible parking is probably visitor parking that I'm seeing up in the northwest. Well, no, I'm all misoriented, but, and then the restaurant parking. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct by design. We thought this is a better plan that you're not seeing, lots of garages, that you're seeing resident, a gracious sense of arrival to the motor court with resident guest parking right there.
Yeah, definitely my preference. So I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, go ahead. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you. So one of our goals is sustainability. Tell me what you might incorporate, geothermal or any kind of specific environmental attributes.
It's a goal of ours. It's too early yet, but energy efficient building systems and native landscaping species and stormwater management strategies. There's a lot of strategies that we'll consider. It's just too early yet for us to tell you exactly what we're thinking.
Terrific. Thank you.
Will that 10% mix for affordability be both townhouses and condominiums, or?
Yes, that's our proposals. As within the townhomes, there would be the 10% of the units, and then within the condominiums, 10% as well.
Okay, all right. And then I like this, that kind of common drive value you've used along the railroad tracks. I think that's a nice way to get some separation from the tracks.
That is a consideration of ours, that the track's being used more, and, acoustics, and, Wayzata has a train track going right through their downtown. You might know of lots of condominiums that have been built and sold there, and so we're taking that into consideration here as well, and trying to buffer these residents from the railroad there.
Yes, one place you can see some of the creativity you've had in the past, Mr. Runk, is down at the 11, where you worked. It's not an easy site to work with either, but you put quite a remarkable building up there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great space. So another thing that my colleagues have talked about, some of the things I like about it. This whole notion of creating kind of a neighborhood feel, and I think one of you described it as a village. Is that where you ended up with from a concept standpoint? I wonder if you might comment on that a little bit more.
Well, I think the village comes from, first of all, everybody having a direct entrance into their building, so it's more personalized. I think it also, Mayor Hovland, is from having owner occupants here. It'll just feel differently. The other thing, and I'm sort of speculating on this, but I believe we're going to get first-time home buyers. I mean, if you look at the world we're in, it's very hard for people to get into their first home now, and so. Without saying this is affordable housing, the market rate units, it kind of is a way of delivering something more affordable to first-time home buyers. I think you're seeing more townhome development across the metro to provide that first ownership to people. I also think it's a good transition for people. I mean, my wife and I are empty nesters in 3 years. We have a girl finishing up at Edina, and I can't imagine we'd move into one big building with 150 units. I think we would move into a townhome, and our preference is, of course, to stay in Edina. And so I think we're also providing some generational housing for folks that want to stay in the community, be a part of the community, but don't want the big single-family home anymore, don't need it, right? So that creates a village. Just having a different age demographic, I think, also creates a point of interest in any neighborhood, right?
Mr. Chair, we are out of time.
Okay. I had one more question, but that's fine.
We would encourage you to, if we're selected to tour projects that we've done around the metro as examples that for this site and what we did there.
Yeah.
So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Runk.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Mr. Catter. Mr. Frederick, it was good to see you. Mr. Kostrowski, good to see you.
Our next presenter has just arrived and will be here in just a moment.
All right. Oh.
All times.
Oh,
I
wow.
must have missed the one.
All the
Yeah, I'm like, this is.
stuff you'd really want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody else rivaling you for here. There.
As we transition, it'll be, we have everybody's scheduled, so there might be a few moments of downtime. Our next team is Opus Development Group. Their proposal will be presented in just a moment. I don't want to steal any of their thunder, but Nick is here this morning with his team. Their architect is also going to join, and actually we're running about 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So we'll let the team kick off, introduce themselves. As with all teams, we have 30-minute time slot for you. Sure. We're anticipating about 15 minutes for your presentation to learn more about you and your proposal, and that leaves about 15 minutes for question and answer and discussion amongst the HRA board for you about your proposal. Perfect. So Mr. Neal is our timekeeper. If you see him giving you the side eye or a big sign, that means that you're getting very close to your time limit, and your presentation is preloaded for you, and we're looking forward to learning more. Best to receive podium mic? Podium mic, whichever one you prefer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And Mr. Neal will not be bashful about giving you a heads up.
I'll keep an eye out over here. Well, good morning. Great to see you all.
Yeah, good to see you, Mr. Moran.
Nick Moran with Opus. Great to be back here. I've got Jay Fournier with Opus as well here, and we do have one more coming, Bob Loken from ESG. Apologies that he's a few minutes late. You'll recognize Bob. He was part of our team as well for the Arcadia building across the street. So we're going to dive into our concept here rather quickly, but won't spend a ton of time. You guys are familiar with our team, the Opus and ESG team. Everybody on our team had some involvement in either the apartment building or the office building across the street, so we're obviously very intimately familiar with the area, understand the small area plan and some of the vision of the residents, of the council, of planning commission. So I think we looked at it from that light and said, you know, what could we do on this site that really enhances the streetscape, enhances the neighborhood, and is something that's really a need in this area. So with that, we'll just kind of jump in, and Jay, feel free to jump in at any time as well. Complicated site, as you all know. We've got some grade challenges from kind of north to south, and ultimately when we looked at it, we felt that creating this neighborhood vibe within this Grandview district was really important. We know that now we've got an established office building across the street that's going to be going in. We've got Avador to the west, and it felt like, how could we look at some options of housing on the site that had some density but wasn't too overly dense and really felt like a neighborhood feel. So we really looked at optimizing the grade as best as we could. The challenges of the grade and the new walkway to the north and just how much we drop from north to south, we started looking at it and saying, how can we maximize access to the site, parking, as well as different types of housing uses. So as you'll kind of see in these plans, and I'll let maybe Jay talk a little bit from an architectural standpoint, we really wanted to control the massing as much as we could that we felt was appropriate with what's going on in the area. So you'll see different levels stepping down, 2-story spaces, but the majority of the site, if you want to just jump back to the site plan, oh, that's a good one, that one works. Majority of the site is focused on different levels of density of housing. So I'll call it the south 2/3 of the site. Ultimately, you'll see it's kind of bifurcated by the drive aisle there. Everything south of that is different levels of housing, different types of housing that really, I think, complement each other well and try to create this neighborhood feel. We know that along Arcadia, we want the wider sidewalks, the heavy landscaping, the kind of boulevard-esque approach. So that's how we looked at the south 2/3. I'll let Jay talk a little bit about that. And then on the north side, maybe we'll talk about the housing first and we can come back to that. But on the north side of the site, we looked at maintaining a large green space as well as a retail restaurant component. So we'll touch on that second, but I'll let Jay and Bob, you're all familiar with Bob Loken from ESG as well. I'll let them talk a little bit more about the architecture on the site.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Moran. I forgot to do something at the very beginning, and that was to thank all of you for being interested in this site. You know, we're all excited about the new headquarters for Opus across the street, and know that'll be starting soon, and we're interested in seeing how that interacts with the bridge work and the movements around the area. But nonetheless, we're really happy to have you there from a corporate headquarters standpoint, and you're long kind of association with ownership and other families in Edina. But special thanks to you for being interested in this site as well, and taking the time and absorbing the expense that you did to make a presentation and compete with others for the work to be done on this 3.3 acre site. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're very excited as well about both this project and the project across the street, and look forward to kind of diving into that more. So thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm going to touch real quickly on, we know that, as Nick touched on, the importance of the Grandview framework plan and how that carries through in the multiple years that the city has been working to really grow this in a methodical and way that really delivers for what the city's interests are. And so a lot of things that Nick was touching on that we wanted to reinforce with the site plan aspects were utilizing the Grandview garage and the new pedestrian link over from a parking standpoint. On the north, pushing that retail commercial opportunity to the north end of the site where you can kind of see the arc here, if that's a building or a private park or whatever that might turn into, but really activating that more commercial feel closer to Hilltop, closer up to the Grandview retail commerce area. And then the promenade going down Arcadia, we know we want a wide street, walkable, bikeable, really make this somewhere that invites all of our neighbors into this area and really doesn't push them away, and the scaling of the buildings are supporting that. And then, again, the neighborhoods within it. So we have kind of that commercial node on the north. We have that kind of central green between the townhome row homes here in the middle of the lot. And then as you get down to the south end, a little bit more density, a little bit more kind of urbanization that'll match kind of the density of the new headquarter building across the road. I'll let Bob maybe touch on the architecture, and then we can take some questions.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks for having us. I'd also like to thank the council and the mayor and Bill for creating this unique brief. It's fun as an architect. Often the brief we get is, please put as much density as possible within some certain height limit, and you end up with a very blunt, blocky building, knowing that that wasn't really the case here. It was refreshing to be able to sort of look at this with new eyes and really create some interesting architecture and provide some really rare, almost missing middle housing types. So the thing that we really appreciated about this brief was, the emphasis on different heights of buildings, different styles of buildings, and we tried to embrace that everywhere from a multi-story apartment building that's a little more conventional to townhomes with detached garages, walk-up flats with tuck-under garages, just a lot of variety. And the other thing that we really had fun with was just changing varying the top of the architecture to provide something that looks a little bit more accretive, like it might have been designed or built over time rather than one giant development that was just sort of landed like a UFO. And then embracing the Grandview development framework, we really focused on trying to activate those street frontages, even though the majority of the street frontage is primarily housing. What we tried to do was put as many doors on the street as possible with outdoor stoops and patios, ways to really enliven that street and try to make it into a neighborhood. And then obviously the kind of the mystery object here is that north portion of the site, that commercial area. And we've got broad vision for that, but I think we'd really love to hear more from this body what your aspirations are. I think the inspiration for us was knowing the ambitions that the city has had for this site over time. Like, that site has always been earmarked as a public site. And so what we tried to do was, knowing that the city was more interested in a private development there, what we tried to do was envision a commercial space that could also serve some of those civic goals, like gathering for a variety of different groups and ages and income levels. And the thing that we kept hitting on was recreation, whether that be sort of light recreation from bocce ball or bags, maybe even to something a little bit more physical and outdoor focused. So that was the vision for that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I think the only thing I'd add to Bob's notes on the north is that, at the highest level, I think the idea is some sort of restaurant, some sort of component that has that indoor-outdoor feel. And these are really representative images that we felt could represent something unique and something different that really takes advantage of some of that private green space that also serves the public. So how can we look at what that ultimate use is that kind of caters to both of those needs? So these are some representative images of other projects that we've seen done very well, and I think it shows just how you can kind of have both the public or public using the space, but also having that private user there as well. So. And then this just gets a little bit deeper into showing some of the density on the site as well. So Bob talked a lot about the different housing uses, and I think that's something that we're really excited about is instead of just throwing one building on there that just kind of is a typical apartment building, this really gives you an opportunity to break it up and to have a lot of different offerings for the neighborhood. So you've got more of the traditional building to the south, some of the townhomes and flats, the tuck-under garages. I think it's a really unique way to look at stepping down. As you all know, with the grade challenges, we really tried to focus on how could it feel like it really fit in the site and was meant to be there, as opposed to just a building that kind of built into the grade. This, I think, does a really nice job of stepping down. And then I think this image on the top just kind of shows a really rough idea of that north parcel and how you could possibly look at it. That can be very flexible, and I think that's what's exciting for us is just seeing what the market dictates, knowing that you don't want to force it. You want something that the market wants to see. So we show the building there. That building could grow, it could shrink, it could change shape, it could move east-west. I think the flexibility is really important for that to be successful. I think that is our last one, unless we have anything else.
Okay,
Happy to answer any questions.
Let me turn to my colleagues, but let me ask you one quick question. When you made your initial submission and you had a price point for the value of the property, the value of the land, I think it was, looking back in my materials, it was $2.25 million, I think. Is that where you still sit on that?
Yeah, I think ultimately the density would drive that. That's where we felt was close to market.
Okay.
Again, the lower density, open to discussing that in more detail as well, but that's where we drove to with some of the density that we're showing here today.
And it would be traditional financing that you would take care of. You're not looking for any public assistance.
No. The north portion was one that we were curious about, and hearing more about the private aspect of it and some of the parking involved with that. We'd possibly open up that conversation if we had heard that, hey, this really wants to be more of a public park or something like that. If it's truly private, we would obviously work to understand what that looks like, how we maintain that park, but we did not assume that in our underwriting.
Or in your price point?
Or in our price point.
Yeah, okay, that's helpful. Thanks. Let me turn to my colleague. Sure. Councilmember or Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to ask first the questions that I'm going to ask everybody, and that is approximately how much permeable surface is this as a percentage of the site are we looking at? Oh, and thank you, first of all. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Welcome. I think we didn't even calculate that necessarily with this sort of quick burn exercise. If I had to guess, I would guess that maybe more than half is permeable.
Okay, terrific. That's fine. I know this is really at the beginning. And then the other question is, how are you going to incorporate, or do you plan to incorporate sustainability aspects into this development?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of, the fact that the buildings don't occupy the entire footprint allows some unique sustainable aspects that a more dense project wouldn't, like that open field could allow for some geothermal wells that, geothermal wells had been becoming more and more viable until recently, but who knows, the pendulum may swing again and they may become more viable. The technology is getting better and better. It's just a matter of tax incentives. And then obviously rooftop PV, I think everything we've designed with Opus is at least PV ready, if not having PV.
Thank you. And then when we initially looked at this, the big stumbling block for me in moving it forward was that it is all rental. Can you talk about whether this could be a rent-to-own situation, or in the future, making it an ownership opportunity?
Sure, and we had some conversations with Bill about that as well. We are looking at what those options look like for either a ownership option at the very beginning, or to your comment, possible conversion down the road. And a big part of that would be which portions and which buildings are a type A concrete construction versus wood. That's usually an important piece to conversion in the future, is that it's difficult to convert wood to condos in the future. So looking at whether that's the buildings on the south facing OLG, or maybe one or both of the more townhome and lofts, not the primary larger building, but the two kind of in the middle of the site, looking at concrete construction for those, which I think really lends itself well to that row home, townhome feel anyway. You get maybe 2-3 levels, or a 2-level with a tuck under garage. So we're certainly open to it on either the front end or long-term conversion. The rent to own is probably not something that would work with traditional financing, but it's something that we would certainly look into. It's probably one or the other for us, of ownership up front or possible conversion in the future.
Okay, but it's certainly something you're open to.
We're open to it, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Commissioner Edina and Commissioner Risser.
Thank you, and thank you also for the presentation. The one thing that I also really liked is kind of a little bit of the scaled back from a density perspective. So having the townhouses, the row houses, I think that that's a really nice element. And at the same time, based on the presentation today, it feels like all housing, right? And I know that you're still kind of thinking through how to do that activation on the top side of it. And I think that that's going to be a really, really important component. I'm also curious if there's any opportunity through the building structure that's already defined here to have something that's even like maybe 2 of those row houses on the first floor, there's a small bakery or coffee shop or something to bring in more activation throughout the site for the community? Or are you really envisioning housing, because you have, across the street, some of those other elements? Just talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. We talked a lot about how to incorporate more commercial in some ways, and just candidly, the parking is probably the biggest challenge. A lot of the uses you're talking about typically require that head-in kind of parking. Somebody wants to park quickly, grab their coffee, and go. And as much as we wanted to try to incorporate that, it was difficult on Eden and Arcadia, because we really looked at that hard corner and said, is there something we can do here? And ultimately, it kind of drove that commercial to the north, and we ultimately landed on that. It felt like having that commercial at the north felt like the right area as you transition from OLG and you transition up into what's already a commercial district, possibly an opportunity for some shorter term head-end parking up there, a handful of stalls as opposed. But I think the challenge with more traditional retail is that parking, access, and just getting people there. If there's nowhere to park, you can't park on Eden, might not be able to park on Arcadia in the future. Where do you go? Because the walk from the ramp's a long way. So I think ultimately driving that to the north is where we landed, and ultimately that could be more than one user at the north as well. You could have a building that say it ends up being 7,000-8,000 square feet. You may have a coffee shop that takes 2,000 and a restaurant that takes 5, or something in that mix that I think would be great for the area and for the neighborhood. But I think in our mind, it really does want to be on the north end.
Thank you.
Commissioner Risser.
I do want to point out a couple things that I really like. I like the central green for the townhomes, and I think that creates a nice community space. And I had initially, when I saw the plan and it's like future development, I was sort of frustrated, but I do know, and I tried to find the place where this happens, but there are cities in Europe that specifically set aside land for future development. And I think that is really brilliant, and so I've kind of flipped around on that a little bit. I see the logic of putting the commercial in the northern area. So that makes sense to me, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I do see rationale and logic to not having that completely all buttoned up and everything. That's all I have.
Thank you. Looking at that initial proposal of yours, you had some breakdown. I think you had 10% affordable on the rentals and then a 6% attainable. Is that still where you are
Yes.
on that?
Yep.
Okay, okay. And then, just to be clear, on the north end, you're open to some combination of public and private use, but that wouldn't affect your pricing valuation at 2.25 private source
That's
fund.
accurate. I think the biggest question just is how does that space get used? And if it does become a much more public space, how do we build that out in a way that we're able to have a financially successful project? And that's where possibly, is it TIF or whatever it is, that if it became a truly public space, especially just the size of that space, that's something that we'd want to be able to talk about. But we are open to many uses, and I think to Commissioner Risser's comment, identifying what it could be, having some really fun, cool ideas, but calling it future because we really want to see what the market dictates so that we don't end up with that empty building that just sits there and we miss the mark.
Sure.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, makes sense. We understand that. On the complimentary side, too, I would say a good scale. Thank you, Mr. Architect. Good scale on both Eden and Arcadia, I thought. Recognition of the railroad tracks was handled in an interesting way. A good trail connection through the site. Reasonable amount of density. I think that's one of the things that we're all sensitive to. We understand what you're usually asked to do, and those are some of the things that I thought were really good about it. It was overall a really solid plan, and we've got kind of 5 different views of the world here that we chose to kind of drill down on a little bit deeper, and so we thank you for your view of what you see for this site, and it creates a lot of good thinking to be done on our need for a lot of good thinking to be done on our part about what direction we want to go. So thanks for that, and we'll look forward to seeing you start across the street.
Wonderful.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, good. Thank you
for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks.
We'll take a brief pause and I'll prepare the next team.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, we are back. We have our third team this morning, Noir Companies, Wellington Management, and Collage Architecture. So with that, I will turn it over to the team. They have, just as with the other ones, we have 30 minutes scheduled. We've asked them to present for about 15 minutes. Mr. Neal's our timekeeper, so if he gives you the side eye or the glance, that means that you're at your 15 minutes. And then we've allocated about an additional 15 minutes for conversation, question and answer, and discussion, so that our HRA board can be fully informed as they make their decision. And so with that, I invite you to, well, number one, I welcome you and invite you to make your presentation.
Good morning. Before you all start, I just wanted to thank you for participating in this process. It's time consumptive and expensive for you, and then it's not a normal sort of development situation where here you're competing with other companies for this potential work, and we just want you to know how much we appreciate that continuing interest and that willingness to commit that time and resources to this possible endeavor here as we go about this process of trying to figure out with these 5 distinctly different proposals, all of which are very well done, who we might end up working with. So right off the bat, I want you to know how much we appreciate your interest in this matter. So thank you. And welcome, Ms. Knorr. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having us, and we're honored to be here. Good morning, board members. My name's Noel Knorr. I am the principal of Knorr Companies. We are the largest minority and women-owned development and construction firm in the Twin Cities. We're also an award-winning developer and contractor. Some of our projects you might have seen. I'm also your neighbor. I'm an Edina resident, proud Edina resident, and you are my council members. And I appreciate your time and service. So this project is more than just a development opportunity. Our goal is to show you what we want to do from a vision perspective, but we're really interested in strengthening this community. Our agenda today is, first we'll do introductions of our team. We'll share a brief vision, our expertise. Some of you may not know us and what we've done, our financial capacity, and we'll close with Q&A. First, I'm joined by 3 exceptional partners, and I'd like for them to introduce themselves. So I'll invite my team members to the podium.
Good morning, everybody. Steve Wellington. I own and am the CEO of Wellington Management. We celebrated a 40th anniversary last December, so we've been at this for a while. Sadly, not really as deeply invested in Edina than we should have been. We should have found an opportunity here many years ago, but we've...
I thought the same thing. Because your reputation precedes you. So.
Well, thank you. We are St. Paul based. I originally moved from Boston, and after going to the Humphrey Institute, spent 10 years working for the city of St. Paul when George Latimer was mayor. Quite a wonderful experience from years ago, but then moved to the private sector in my mid-30s, just when the recession was coming, which was actually a blessing. You learn a lot in tough times. We now have over 100 buildings, all in the Twin Cities. It's about $1 billion, which every time I say that seems kind of out of the world, because it started with 0 and just myself, and we have about 45 employees that manage both the development work as well as the property management work, because we do focus a lot of our attention on just operating the buildings, because we tend to have a habit of hanging on to properties rather than selling them to institutional owners. Those 100 buildings are comprise about 5 million square feet of commercial property. We have about 600 different tenants and 1,100 housing units. About half of that portfolio we built from ground up. So we're developers, but we develop and then hold for usually forever. I think I need a 12-step program to learn how to liquidate things, but that's not our orientation. It is a family-owned company. Son David joined us 10 years ago, and he's the president. I'm the CEO. I'm not quite sure who's in charge, but it's a great opportunity for the two of us to work together. We have 59 different investing partners, individuals who have invested with us. In addition to that, I think we have 21 different commercial banks and insurance companies that we rely on for the mortgage debt. We have a strong portfolio that has the ability to generate investment capital every year, and we think this particular project is a good opportunity for us to finally have an opportunity to work with you guys. I think your reputation does precede you. I'm not trying to buttering you up, but as I observed a variety of cities, we have properties in 23 different cities in the Twin Cities area. There's a lot of different character for the ways in which cities like yourself address new development and redevelopment. And I've felt that Edina has been extremely creative and successful with what some people from the outside would think would be easy. I don't think your land use and your redevelopment is at all simple or something that just comes automatically to you. You've and your predecessors have done a really exceptional job making the city special and continuing to regenerate the kind of energy that you need. You don't just sort of sit on your laurels and say, well, we're all done. It's never done. And I think you're facing quite a lot of challenges right now that I'm sure you as the HRA are eager to be successful with. And we hope this particular parcel, which I know has been something that has been looked as a redevelopment opportunity for some time. There have been some efforts that haven't been successful. We are going to be very successful for you, and we're excited in what we're doing. So I would like to comment also on Nawal. She is a very good friend and an exceptional leader for her company. And we have tackled a number of things with her, and we're very happy to be chosen by her to put us with her in this wonderful group. I would like to also identify one of our outstanding 45 employees. Casey Jevachensky is our chief financial agent and officer, and he's next up, right? Good deal.
Thank you, Mr. Wellington. Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Casey Jevachensky. I've been at Wellington Management for about 8 years now. Started my career working for a nonprofit lender that worked all over the country, both on commercial loans and affordable housing. And from there, went to work for the city of Minneapolis for about 4 years, working mostly in North Minneapolis, a lot of unique brownfield redevelopment projects. And that's where I got to know the Wellington team, Steve and his son David. And, I was standing at this project site in North Minneapolis that was an old vacant dry cleaner and about 5 acres of vacant land. And they had these crazy ideas to redevelop this site when there wasn't really a market there. And I kind of said, well, this is kind of like the company I'd like to work for someday, because, loved working at the city, but I wanted to work for a company that was rooted in the community, had strong values, cared about their team, and did really great projects with cities like Minneapolis and Edina. So one day I got a call from their general counsel saying they were looking for people to come join them, and if I knew anybody, I should send them in a resume. And so I went home and said, I didn't want to ask, in my office at the city, so I'd love to get an interview. So that was about 8 years ago, and when I started, it was about kind of coming out of, we're out of the recession, and really took the opportunity with Steve and David to grow our housing portfolio, working on some really challenging sites, We've grown it from about 200 units in 2 buildings when I started to now, as Steve said, over 1,000 units. And it's been a great experience. You know, the work is great day to day, but it's really the people that you show up and go to work with that makes you want to go to work and work on really challenging projects. And so when we saw this RFP and started talking to Noel and Pete, it's like, you know, we got to sink our teeth in, and it's a challenging site, but it's a great opportunity, and we're just excited to be here. So I'll turn it over to Pete, and then we'll get actually into the good stuff and look at the plans.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pete Keeley, Collage Architects. We've been around for 20 years. I've known and worked for Steve for probably close to 30 now. We're a housing firm. That's what we do. We've done over 10,000 units of housing of all scales, over 1,000 of which are townhomes, which you see here. The majority of the rest are kind of in the apartment world, as you also will see in this proposal. Everything from affordable on up to high-end luxury, but what we're really proposing here is, especially on the townhouse side, is really more of what we'd call attainable. We're coming off a project where we just completed in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood about 20 for sale affordable units that we're selling at about $500,000 to $600,000. It's not an easy thing to do, so it takes some of the expertise to figure out the best ways to deliver housing, really nice housing at a really nice price. So with that,
so we'll get into the meat of it, but I want to just share a brief vision of what we've presented here. Do you want to go back to the main slide? Our vision is to create a mixed-use development with attainable townhome ownership, quality rental apartments, ground floor commercial space, and beautiful public plaza that serves the entire community. What sets us apart isn't just experience, and I'd like to share that a little bit more, and Steve did share, and maybe I'll add a little bit to North Companies because I didn't talk about it, but it's more importantly, it's commitment. We develop and invest for generations. And so this project, you'll see every decision, Steve, David, Casey, and Pete and I have spent quite a bit of time looking at Edina. We viewed it through a long-term lens because we are your partners. We think beyond the groundbreaking. And so just briefly, because I missed it, with North Companies, we have about 700 units of housing either under development or have completed. 240 of those are in development. So, Pete?
thank you. Now I'll kind of run through. I think one of the first things we started at with the design and the idea of it was how do you build community and how do you build on that site. So what we really wanted to make sure is that these spaces opened up to the street, defined the street, created pedestrian walkways, really create a great street experience, but also create public spaces and semi-public and private spaces. So you can see on the kind of the very north side, the pedestrian walkway, we do have, this is kind of a public area. We're seeing that as a place people can come and gather as they're walking through. We've also located a commercial building. You can see that in purple on the very northeast corner. That commercial, we're thinking, is a way to really kind of activate, one, that public park, but also the street. This is kind of right where you're coming in off the off-ramp. We think it's got good visibility, good connection to the rest of the commercial core. So we also think it's really looking at a kind of commercial that can draw a little bit of traffic through there. And so as people are walking through, it becomes kind of the center of that community. We believe strongly that a little bit of commercial can really create these communities so neighbors can come out, have a place to be, whether it's in the public park, grabbing ice cream or coffee or whatever happens at that corner. Second to that, there's a courtyard right in the middle, kind of the circular building. That courtyard is semi-public, and so people can move through that. One of the other strategies that we really do, the cost of the site is going to be driven a lot by soils and grade. And so we really put a lot of time into trying to understand the best way to deal with the grade. So the building acts as retaining walls. So on the north side, we basically have a two-story expression in the townhomes. And I'll show some images real quick here. And on the back side of that, that building steps down. So we're making up grade as this building terraces down the site. And then on the south side of that apartment building, that leads into the townhomes. And the townhomes then define the public street. We've got basically a 1,500 square foot average for those townhomes. Some are going to be a little bit larger, some a little smaller, so we can hit some of our pricing and attainability goals. Larger on the street on Acadia, excuse me, and Eden, and the middle units are a little smaller than the end units. So we're getting a range, 1,500 is about the average. That gives us the ability to kind of get some price points down a little bit further. So let's jump into some pictures. This is from Eden, looking back up the hill, trying to show kind of the street front, the vitality of the townhomes along Eden. This also steps up the hill, and you can see the kind of the larger multifamily building in the back. And we did this for a number of reasons. One, to step down the hill. We wanted to actually accentuate the hill, but then this also steps into the neighborhood, and it gets good visibility for the multifamily building. This is the multifamily building. You can see on the left-hand side of that, there's kind of a two-story portion. So one of the things we've done from a design perspective is carry two-story townhomes, a two-story brick portion, two-story commercial portion, and a two-story townhome portion as we wrap all the way around. So we're trying to get a mix of scales and get 2 stories on the street for the most part. So really kind of define that kind of pedestrian experience. You can also see through these 2 buildings is that semi-public courtyard. It's open. It's just people can congregate in there. There's some trees, pretty lush landscaping. We believe that's really important on how you create community. Put front doors at the street, put places for people to gather, and put places for people to go to gather as well, which is the commercial, which is right here. So this is a 2-story commercial piece that would open out, spill onto the street, and then into the kind of, I'd say, the public green. This is the public green. It's got kind of townhomes facing that public green. So again, that's that 2-story portion that wraps towards the front. We see very defined places for people to gather, whether that's places to eat, families, area to maybe play. And so we do see this in the mix of the townhomes, the mix of the apartment buildings, within that as a way to gather kind of multi-generational renters and owners from all scales. One of the real advantages on the multifamily side is we can really tune into the market and the mix to create that community for a demographic. That said, I think one of the important things is how do you build community? We kind of said it from the beginning, but that's also coming back to what does the city want? We're willing to listen. We're willing to kind of say, hey, what is it that we should provide here? I think one of the things in an RFP process, it's always hard to kind of hear what you want. So this is kind of our vision, but I think our vision is to create community in collaboration with you and the stakeholders and the community. So with that, I'll turn it back to first closing.
Pete, I still remember the design you had for the old Best Buy site at 66th and York. Or Mike Mikan. When he owned the property before he sold it to Kelly Dorner, he got involved. I mean, the design you had over there was
better than what's
pretty
there.
special.
Well, I appreciate that.
Apparently unbuildable, but very special.
Well, there is a little bit of that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
they had a different vision, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So before the Q&A, we just kind of wanted to, now that you've seen the drawings and the vision, right, that's going to continue to take shape, just want to reemphasize kind of our team's ability to execute. We're a pretty small group, but that we're also a creative group, right? And we can get things done. You know, we've, in the past 3 years, we've worked on about 500 or so units of housing of new construction, and it's LIHTC housing, so different than this. We've also done some market rate housing in that mix. So we work on projects that are, 50 million plus, that require both a bank loan and private capital. And those LIHTC projects, I mean, I'm excited to work on this project because on the financing side, it's a little simpler than a 100% affordable project where you got to wait around 4 years to get all the capital to show up from the state and the tax credit agencies and the investors, right? This is a little different structure, but it's still, it's a big project and we're excited. And so, in-house at Wellington, we have a legal team. We have our VP of Finance has been there for 20 years with deep relationships. with the lending community in town, not to mention Steve and David, a Rolodex, thicker than I think would fit on a cell phone hard drive. So, we know how to get projects financed. We know how to get them done. It takes a lot of time and effort and heavy lifting by kind of not only us, but also you. And so it's really, me coming from working at a city where I kind of see the other side and what do cities kind of care about and what do they look for? And part of this is not just picking the proposal that pays the most money or has the best drawings. It's like, who do you want to work with for the next couple of years on this to close the deal and to start construction? And, Steve and David and Pete and myself, we generally like sitting down with city staff and council members and brainstorming and problem solving. And so this is why we show up. We like doing this work, and we have the ability to get it done. So as Pete mentioned, one of the concerns, or not concerns, but challenges of the site is the soil and grades. We've already done a little bit of homework in the information provided on the website related to the geotech and some of the environmental. We've had one of our contractors that we work on with most projects take a look at those geotech reports and just try to really give us some thoughts and think about, okay, what is, this is not just a farm field we're building on, right? There's a lot of history here on the site. Like Pete said, how do we design this building so we're kind of minimizing costs on the front end? And that's where all the risk is really for the developers. You don't really know what you're going to find in the dirt till you start digging. So we've tried to be thoughtful about, okay, what does this look like? How do we minimize the amount of soil that we're hauling off the site in trucks to a landfill? And how do we think creatively? We've done other projects where we pile 150, 200 feet in the ground, right? And that's also has a cost, but it minimizes that impact to the site, and you get a building off the ground. So, there's a lot of stuff that we got to dig into if we're lucky enough to be selected, but we're excited to take that next step. So.
Thanks. As the finance guy, I'm just going to ask you a quick question here. Some of the proposers restated the price they were prepared to pay for the property.
Mm-hmm.
Some alliteration there I didn't intend. But I didn't see that in your proposal, and so if you could comment on that, plus the source of funds.
Yep. So I think our original or our submittal offered $4.5 million for the site, and that's again based on the density of the site, and like I said, there's unknowns in the dirt, and so that's we're kind of assuming, okay, we only know so much right now, but this is what if it's a buildable site, this is what we think we can pay to get the deal done. I think in terms of financing sources, you're looking at the checkbooks behind me, and then in addition to that, like I said, we tend not to go out and call big institutional firms on the coast and try to bring in kind of blind money. That's not really how we operate, because then you're a long-term relationship, long-term holder. We're not trying to just bring in some temporary capital then to go flip it, right? So we find equity partners, usually friends and family. We work with smaller institutional offices or family offices where we actually know the people, and we just had some investment partners come into town a couple weeks ago, and we spent all day together walking one of our buildings and going out to dinner, and we have a relationship with those folks, right? So that's the type of partnerships that we have in our projects. And then, like I said, we have relationships with all the mid-sized community and large banks in town, and so we know how to pursue that piece of it too. So I think when we think about the capital stack, it's owner equity, construction financing that would eventually get to takeout financing that could be a HUD loan or a Fannie and a Freddie loan, something like that, which we're doing right now.
No public, no city financing required.
We're not proposing any TIF right now. And talking with Bill, I know that those TIF requirements for affordable housing would trigger larger affordability requirements. So I think that's something we're open to talking about if the city wanted to see more affordability. I think we kind of propose that 10% for both the rental and the townhomes, assuming that's meeting the city requirements. And then I think obviously it's really okay. What do we need to do a little more exploration into the soils and what do those look like? And then I think we have experience if there is a need for public money going out to the state or the county to seek kind of redevelopment dollars to subsidize gaps too. So.
Another question I had was, and you've been doing work with Mr. Wellington for 8 years, and he's been doing it for about 40. Just wondering if you've had a project like this where you've had a combination of rental and for sale on the same site, and how that works out for you for the interaction of those two concepts.
Yeah, you know, we've done some bigger sites in Blaine that was 100+ acres where we developed most of the retail. We sold off some for apartments and some for sale homes and townhomes. And so we've done a mix. You know, the project Pete mentioned earlier in Bassett Creek Valley, North Minneapolis, we have, I think it's 17 townhomes on one parcel adjacent to commercial building that we developed adjacent to 2 affordable housing buildings that we've developed. So, you know, Steve, if you want to jump in on anything I'm missing, but those are just a couple that come to mind. So I think this site is big enough at 3 acres, and it kind of lends itself to that north side connected to the public plaza with the south side. That's, you know, steps down in density as we move south. So I think if it was a 1 acre site, it would be a lot harder to accommodate that. But I think given the size and the way that it's laid out in the street grid, I think it lends itself really well to that mix.
Let me go turn to my colleagues here. Commissioner Agnew.
We have about 5 minutes left for this.
Oh boy, I had 3 questions. Okay, I want to talk, I guess, to prioritize about, I guess, when I'm looking at the site plan, I think that that's a good visual. But to the left side of the page, what I'm seeing is, it feels like a lot of parking and kind of surface concrete potentially. And so talk to me about whether there could be any opportunity to reduce that. And I'm looking maybe even particularly like townhouses 16 through 21, if there could be an opportunity to eliminate that drive-through in the center, tuck that under, and give some more green space, potentially throw in something like a community garden or residential garden. Like, is that a possibility here?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Those we were targeting to be a little bit more on the attainable side. Anytime you structure parking, that attainability factor kind of changes a little bit because structured parking is expensive. I think it would be a great site. So we were focusing more on how can we get that price point below $1 million rather than trying to make that great. If you came back and said we want more community gardens, we can certainly work that way. I think that's a great asset, but that's why we're showing it the way we're showing it.
Okay, and then to follow up on the housing, the affordability and the attainable mix, would those units, and kind of looking at the side here, would there be affordability at every layer? Example, 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units also within that range?
By every layer in terms of the for sale on the townhomes, yes. The idea is the middle units would probably be more attainable than the end units. The end units tend to want to be a little bit bigger. We're also looking at kind of a stacked flat situation, so they're not just 2-story townhomes, so they can maybe go stacked flats. And then the ones that are going to be, there's always ones that are a little bit better than others. So that's where the range of the pricing comes in, but there'd be some affordability kind of, or attainability kind of scattered throughout.
Okay,
and then in addition to that, the apartment also has some, and that's certainly meeting the city guidelines.
Across the range of the unit mix. Okay. And then last question is just whether there's any opportunity to infuse more of the commercial or the community activation, because I'm really just seeing it on that lower edge. Did you look at any other areas?
We absolutely did. Parking, kind of go back to that bugaboo, but we actually buried the parking for the commercial under the building. So to the south side of that, there's an opening in the public ramp. So one of the things to address your point, to open up the community space and get that and accessible parking, was to provide that enclosed. And so we would be happy to look at more, but parking and kind of green space kind of drives that. So I think it would happen in the larger building. We did look at it at the south side as well, but it just took up a lot of space in terms of getting cars to that location, and there's not a lot of kind of off-site availability.
Commissioner Risser.
This is a question I've been thinking about a lot. When we talk about affordable and attainable, and then we say the units, and 60% of these are going to be 650 square feet or less. And so what is the price point for like a 650 square foot apartment? What do you see that being?
I would say, market at this site, market rate, I think, we'd absolutely do a market study here too. I think, for comparison, we have just market rate apartments that we're leasing right now that are, kind of in that 1,700 range for about 500 to 700 square feet for a one bedroom. And then, obviously if that's kind of market rate, it depends on the level of finishes, right? And whether it is income restricted or not. But I would say kind of in that $1,600 to $1,800.
Thank you.
Yep, for a one bedroom.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you for coming forward. I think my fellow commissioners have asked the questions, but thank you so much for taking the time and effort to give us this proposal. It's very interesting. Oh, yeah, I think I've asked everybody this, how much pervious surface are we looking at here?
So we are at about 25% pervious, and we've focused, it's actually a little bit higher than that. That's not counting some of the green spaces right around the townhomes. So that was trying to be in the usable, so along the street frontages, within the courtyard, within the public space. So something that's usable, not just kind of left over.
Okay, and are you going to be using green building techniques with this as well? Is that your plan?
I don't think we've quite gotten to that level, but we'll do best, certainly best on the industry side, whether we're going to go to a standard. I mean, we're doing passive house right now on a number of projects. I'm not saying that's what this is. So we know how to do that. We know how to do, and with Steve in the Wellington group, we've done Green Community Certified. We've just completed our second project on that, starting our third. And so we've got those practices. It kind of depends on the cost and and some of the financing pieces of it, but it's something as long-term owners, I know these are very interested in kind of doing better.
Okay, good, thank you.
I know if there are any questions, I would love to hear, and I know we're kind of limited on time, and so I'd love to close. A couple of things I just want to highlight based on the questions that are coming up. One, this is early site planning, and it also is missing a really important component, which is community engagement and city involvement. And so to the extent that all the questions that have come up, those are all things that we're both flexible and collaborative on to the extent that the numbers work. And so I'll just highlight that to say that this is not, this is our best vision, taking into account all the things that we've learned about Edina and the goals for the site. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down, if we're selected, we're going to talk to you and we're going to talk to the community and see what the city is interested in, the city staff as well. So, commissioners, chair, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to present this. I hope that you've learned a little bit about us and our vision, our capacity to deliver the project, but more importantly, our commitment to really make the site a beautiful site that we can be activating for the community. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say thank you again, and we look forward to receiving additional questions if there's any, and hopefully we win. I know one thing that Steve wanted to highlight was the Blaine site is not 100 acres, it's 240 acres.
Thank you, Ms. Noor. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being interested in this.
Great, thanks. We'll take a brief break, 5 to 7 minutes. I believe the next team is here already, but let me wrangle them and we'll reconvene in 5 to 7 minutes. This could be a coffee break, so you can take the time you need. We've officially scheduled the next presentations at 9, so that's about 15 minutes. So if you want a little bit more time, we can.
And we have coffee coming at 9 o'clock, I believe, right?
9 or 9:30. Yep.
9 or 9:30. Okay.
Yep.
So coffee is coming after the coffee break.
Coffee break
yes.
now, coffee break later.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coffee's coming after the coffee. It's a non-coffee break.
All right, Mr. Newendorf.
All right, thank you. Well,
You know, you said 9 o'clock. That's why I was back there talking to Carrie. It's 8:50. And you're back there telling me, all right, you know, that sort of gentle prod, we're ready to go when you're ready to go. But I was going to be ready to go when you said you were going to be ready to go. 9 o'clock. Okay, here we go. 8:59.
Great. So we're here with our fourth team of presenters. Another pairing, this is Lifestyle Communities and Ron Clark Construction. They're the fourth presenter. I'll get their presentation queued up here, and I'll leave the introductions to you all. I don't want to steal your thunder. As with the other teams, you'll have about 30 minutes in total. We've asked that you present yourselves and the proposal for about 15 minutes, but then I'll allow about 15 minutes for the council and HRA board members to ask questions and have a discussion and make some comments. So with that, I'll get your presentation queued up and we'll start rolling.
We're good. We got it.
Good.
She beat you to it.
Okay. And then before you start, I just want to tell you on behalf of the council, on behalf of the city, how much we appreciate your interest in this. When we looked at 11 proposals and decided we wanted to hear from 5 of the proposers, your group was obviously included in that. And we know there's time and expense involved in all of this for you. As we've tried to figure out what to do with that 3.3 acres, what would be in the best interest of the city. But we want to make sure that you know that we appreciate your interest and your ongoing commitment to trying to, you know, advance your idea of how that site ought to be used. And there's 5 different ideas, and they're all very interesting. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Ben Landhauser with Lifestyle Communities. Also have Mike Waldo from Ron Clark. Tim Nichols also with Lifestyle Communities, but Mike and I will be kind of running through our presentation and also kind of acknowledge and appreciate just this RFP process. So the ability to having already had a conversation with staff to understand kind of what your initial reactions were to our proposal. So as we walk through this presentation, you'll see some subtle changes that we've made more to reflect maybe some things that weren't as clear. As well as some things that we thought could be adjusted to speak to some of the things that might just help this feel like a natural extension of the Grandview neighborhood that I know has been long awaited for this to be kind of that final piece. So happy to run through that with you this morning. So our proposal started kind of talking more about kind of this mixed use and more mixed residentially focused proposal. One of the things that we had contemplated before submitting our RFP proposal to you was just how could we have more of that commercial worked into our proposal without it being like absolutely, you know, huge and a big traffic driver, because it just didn't feel like the right fit for kind of the other things that we thought could be beneficial for this particular site. So one of the things that Mike will talk about as we get into it further is just this idea of we have 2 buildings that face Eden Avenue that do have an opportunity for more kind of that live-work option, depending on who those buyers end up being. So this is an all-for-sale proposal, cooperative on the north end, and then what we had described in our RFP as townhome, which maybe was a little bit confusing. For this presentation, we're going to focus more on using the term flats. So there's single-level living. The buildings look more like townhomes, but they're single-level living units in those buildings on the southern portion of the site. 64 units within that cooperative. So again, we know that this site had previously had a cooperative proposal. We believe that this is kind of more right-sized or right fit for this particular location. Compared to some of the other people that do cooperatives, particularly in the Twin Cities, our company really strives to be more boutique intentionally, allows people to kind of know the names and faces of people that live within the building, not just who's right next door or kind of on that particular hallway, so to speak. So again, intentionally sized 64 units within that cooperative on the north, 16 flat units on the south, so a total of 80 units within this proposal. A couple of things that we did do, if you had an opportunity to kind of thumb through our presentation in advance of this morning, was really focus on how does this site, through our proposal, kind of be that natural extension of the neighborhood. So where are those public engagement opportunities? How does this relate as kind of, again, that place where people are going to walk or kind of meander through versus just being kind of a sub entity unto itself that's really only just for the owners and people that live within this property. So starting at the north, and I've got some visuals that back this up, but on the north, making that more intentional connection to the pedestrian thoroughfare that the city has recently invested in through that bridge that connects to the parking ramp and kind of where Jerry's Foods is. So we know that that's really important to us, and having that walk-up connection always works well because we will have buyers in that co-op in particular that maybe have a dog or they're just active walkers, so they're going to like that connection to walk out, hit that bridge, and kind of meander through the neighborhood. B, so the next kind of area along Arcadia was how could we leverage this idea that there is this public activity around of maybe there's more of a bike courtyard where we have maybe a fixed station, some other pieces that relate to kind of activating this part of the site. And then we also have expanded kind of how that public plaza or that private plaza that relates to the entry into the cooperative so that it feels more publicly accessible, at least from a visual stance. And then we've worked in more of a dedicated kind of pocket park that wouldn't necessarily be publicly owned, but it would be publicly accessible and kind of rounds out kind of what that flat portion of the project looks and feels like. And then finally, those live work units on the south side. So where all of the public kind of connections exist today, we're really trying to enhance and embrace kind of the uniqueness of this site. So one of the things that we provided this morning for you is a few perspective renderings of how these buildings fit into the very unique and dynamic site that this really is. So today, as you're all aware, kind of lives almost like a whole. So we're trying to strategically place uses where we can leverage particularly the Arcadia topography to our advantage so it feels like it's always been there and it's not kind of this dips and, you know, kind of interesting places that we didn't want the building sucked in the hole, and you've got all this other stuff that happens around it. So again, kind of that activation, particularly as we get closer to the new roundabout at Arcadia and Eden, and then augmenting with the addition of some on-street parking on Eden is represented kind of where the E is on the south side of the site that could support if there were some of those live work opportunities realized on this project. So if we go back to the north, this is an example rendering of the actual building that we've proposed for how kind of that pedestrian connection from the units that are along that pedestrian corridor towards the bridge could be done so that it feels more like a natural extension and very pedestrian forward environment. And for context, I know that you're all familiar with kind of the nearby residential development that Trammell Crow did. I know one of the things that was of interest in understanding more is just that proximity of how and where we had placed that cooperative relative to that existing pedestrian connection. This is a 30-foot corridor that was done for this building, and again, they kind of have all of the topography change going through this pedestrian connection. We're looking at more of an at-grade connection from the kind of north side of the cooperative building to that pedestrian path. So this is 30 feet. We're proposing the city retains a 40-foot wide corridor, and then we're 5 to 15 feet from the face of kind of that property line to our building. And then again, back to that bike kind of courtyard that we're contemplating. Again, it may not be much, but again, it's to us more of an activation piece. If we get further along here this morning and talk a little bit about the cooperative, we are looking at kind of bike storage and bike repair within kind of the garage level that's immediately adjacent to this. So from us, it's also something that's beneficial to the cooperative owners. And then C, you'll see that we are looking at kind of dressing up the amenity areas that feel a little bit more commercial and kind of have that street presence so you wouldn't know that this wasn't kind of a public amenity that was available to the neighborhood. And then D, so one of the things that we ended up doing with the buildings on the south, those flat buildings, is the kind of northern two buildings, we reoriented them to create this publicly accessible kind of pocket park or kind of more of a retreat as you're kind of walking or biking through the neighborhood, that this could be something done with maybe partially elevated planters that kind of provide a little bit of reprieve between the closest flat building and kind of where this pocket park is. But this could be for the neighborhood as well as those flat owners to come and congregate, kind of host outdoor events or things that are supportive to kind of what they do in their daily life. But an amenity that we think, given that proximity to the intersection or that roundabout, this seems appropriate in terms of it's not right on that intersection, because no one really wants to stare at cars going around and around and around, but feels quaint and, again, a good location in our mind. And then finally, that idea of kind of the live-work opportunity that I'm going to let Mike speak to as he walks through kind of the composition of what those flat buildings are, just so you understand that.
All right, thank you for that.
Thanks, Ben. Mike Walder with Ron Clark Construction again. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As some of you know, Ron has been both in Edina and the Twin City market for 50 years. The Grandview condos were something we did quite a few years ago. And I think one of the things you see with our projects, just like with Ben and his team, is that they age well. When you look at that project 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you can still be proud of what we have created and what you've created from a city perspective. I think probably the biggest thing, Ben's done a great job of really focusing on the site. From a home perspective, the stack flat kind of concept is kind of what I'll call a townhome on steroids. It kind of gives you a much more diverse ability for a young professional, younger family with young kids, all the way up to an empty nester who isn't quite ready to go into a multi-unit building and looking for something a little more on their own. So you're able to have the two-car garage, you walk in, you're able to then access either stairway or elevator up to either the first or second floor, depending on which one your home is. And then each of those floors has 2 homes on each floor. I think, as Ben talked, one of the unique things here, especially with the grade component, which has been a key thing for us, is we got a lot of grade change from Eden all the way up, and we're trying to figure out how do you incorporate that again so it balances well. The kind of storefront look on Eden gives us a little bit of that commercial flair, but yet within that residential component. We're looking at probably professional offices and kind of any other complementary uses. There's just a diverse range of opportunities there. We're kind of looking at how that would structure. That one opportunity is that each homeowner would purchase one of those. The other opportunity is, does the condo association control them? So if one person says, you know what, I need a bigger space, can I get 2 of those? And one says, you know what, I really don't need to live work. So it gives them the maximum opportunity to not pigeonhole into our belief of what should happen and let it organically change over time, because those changes will swing. If someone ages there, after 10 years, they might, you know what, I don't need that office anymore. Let's let somebody else have the opportunity. I think from a livable perspective, once you get up to the main floor in your living space, you've got everything. You've got the kitchen, dining, family room, kind of as one big area. You've got a really good primary suite. You've got opportunity for up to 2 bedrooms, or in a lot of cases, you'll see that as being a secondary study. If somebody wants a den up there, you always end up with his and her. A lot of cases are the 2 people in there where one needs a more active space, one needs more passive space. So they may take the live-work area, and the other spouse may take one upstairs. So it just gives them the right range. These are very similar to our villa concepts that we do. It's that same 1850 to 2,000 square feet on the one floor, and except that when the grandkids come, you go downstairs. In this case, the same concept. You just have to get up 1 or 2 floors to get to your space. But they really live like a detached villa product, and it fits what I'll call a real diverse age group, which is what we like most about it. Exteriors, again, will be hardy and stone, and we've talked with staff a little bit about kind of that direction as we get through the process. Will be, the Planning Commission Council have more input into that. I think the synergy is something that Ben talked about, and I just want to reaffirm that we're very excited with how the 2 uses mix together. Stepping up from that 3 to 4 story townhome up to, we're incorporating an entry into our space that also becomes that lower garage space. So instead of having a lot of extra blacktop, we're able to do a shared use and him come into his lower space which allows them to have 2 levels of parking. Probably one of the key things, as we've watched this site over the last years, I think with the stagnant nature of it, our team has a plan that can get it done. We can be sitting here a year from now ready to start doing something and building buildings. And so I think that's one of the things that we look at and Ron's history is, and our team has been to get stuff done. And I think that's really where we'd like to see as we move forward. I'll turn it back over to Ben. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So a little bit about the cooperative. So as Mike started to allude, in order to make up some of the significant grade differential, I know you're familiar, there's 38, 39 feet from north to south. So part of what we're looking at is really 2 levels of parking that allows us to make up that bigger kind of hole that exists today. And those 2 levels of parking, the uppermost level also serves as kind of that amenity platform. So it'd have full exposure along our Arcadia, and then basically based on the grades, that north face of that upper parking level would also basically be at grade. The top of it would be at grade with kind of that pedestrian corridor that the city installed recently on the north side. And then that lower garage, as again Mike had talked about, is how could we create some synergies between our product. We're not looking at people they're not always going to work in the morning, they're not always leaving at kind of peak hours. So kind of doubling kind of the access into the Ron Clark product with this cooperative for that lower garage access, really key in our mind, because one, it keeps the overall expense down, it allows more of the site to stay green, and it really is a good synergistic relationship between our 2 projects, that they aren't just an island on the north and an island on the south. It really is kind of a blended use. And then the rest of the floors above that just show kind of we're doing most of the housing, the actual homes and units within our building are on the 4 levels above that. So from the north side of the site, you'll see principally 4 levels of housing, not higher. So we're actually shorter than kind of the Jerry's office building that would be to our west. We'd also be shorter than that Avador, the Trammel Crow development as well. So again, we feel from a context, this works really well within the site. And then from a cooperative perspective, so the kind of distinctive piece, particularly of our Artesa cooperatives, is really that amenity space or amenity spaces. So we have programmed and thought through kind of roughly 9,000 square feet of spaces that do everything from great rooms, kind of smaller private living spaces that people use on a daily basis. It isn't you need 64 of your closest friends that also live in the cooperative to go down and kind of feel like you're at home. You're at home the minute you walk in that front door, or you kind of meet your friends, family that may come over, and you're probably going to spend most of your actual living down in these amenity spaces because they're an extension of your home. So those things end up being very critical for kind of our brand, what our buyers are looking for. And we do think that proximity and relationship to Arcadia and kind of looking at kind of the adjacent flats, there could be, as Mike said, there could be some empty nesters that live in those flats, and you're just walking kind of across the street, so to speak, to go see your friends. And this is that front door best kind of place to meet up and have that opportunity to kind of live within this particular site as a whole, instead of just within these 2 different uses. One of the things that we included in our proposal, so if I shift from just talking a little bit about the cooperative to our overall project, as Mike said, we kind of came together, we're familiar with each other, we love kind of the 2 compatible uses. We're looking at this being an entirely privately financed endeavor for us, that we stand on our own. We're not looking for additional public subsidy. The only thing we may look at, as we would, if selected, get into the weeds a little bit more on, is we know that there may be some environmental things or some infrastructure things that we may look at grants that would help support just some of those assembly costs that relate to this particular site. But we're also trying to have kind of this mixed income opportunity within our overall project. Between our two uses, we're hitting everything that's kind of within, $150,000 to, several $100,000 in terms of equity and price point, so we can appeal to a broader market. And where we don't believe that even on the cooperative side, this is 100% Edina residents, there's probably going to be a lot of Edina residents that move into the cooperative because it's at a price point, at least the way that we've contemplated and financially modeled it. This allows them to leave the large home that they love in the community that they love, move in here, freeze up their homes. And then likewise, Mike has a product that appeals to, it may be that first time, it may be that second time buyer, it may be that empty nester buyer that's lived in Edina for a long period of time. But we like the synergies of kind of what our products do. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I think the number of units we have contemplated here, we have a pre-sale requirement. We believe that being at 64 units is very attainable in a shorter period of time than if we were to, put this up to 80 to 100 units. Just going to be, again, tangible, and our owners are going to like the fact that 64 units is still palatable. You may have, 14 to 17 homes on a particular floor.
We're passing our 20, passing our 15 byways.
Got it. But basically, I think from a price point, that's what went into our offer, and I think we're trying to show you as much of kind of the math, so to speak, on how and why we got to where we did. I'll be quiet now, but thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
I was waiting for Bill to kind of.
That's all right. Yeah, I was waiting for the buzzer.
Yeah, our timekeeper's over here.
Yeah. Got about 10, 11 minutes to go.
Okay. Yeah. Commissioner Risser.
I appreciate the information on how you will achieve affordability. The one concern, and actually this has to do with information coming from us, and I just want to know, with that pedestrian bridge across on the northern side, it sounds like, you see that as a real asset to connect to the stores and businesses over there. And if you haven't walked that, I really encourage you to do that. It does land on the upper deck of the Jerry's parking ramp. So it's depending on whether you're pushing a stroller or using a wheelchair, you got to go upstairs or you got to go down to the entry ramp for cars, which is very steep. So I just want to put that out there to be totally transparent there.
Appreciate that.
I really do appreciate how you're using the site and really thinking about where the parking could go and all of that. I also really appreciate how you're looking at trying to bring in commercial use. And that's all I have, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you so much for putting together the proposal. It's really an interesting idea. I have two questions. One is, what is the pervious surface of your proposal?
I don't know
Approximately.
that, I don't know that we've gotten into that exactly. I would say we're probably around that 25, maybe not quite 30% of the site being permeable, but obviously those are details that we'd work through if selected. But we're trying to leverage as much open space, and there's probably opportunities in kind of how we've put the site together right now to increase that, where there's more permeable opportunities, if that's something that's important to the commission and council. But that's about where I would say we are today.
Okay, terrific, thank you. And then what kind of sustainability, you mentioned this briefly, that if you wanted to get more, you'd be looking for grants and everything, but what are your sort of principles on sustainable building?
You want to go or me? So I'll go first. With a cooperative building, we always strive to be kind of lead equivalent. We never commission our buildings because the cost of that is something that we would obviously pass along to the buyers, and they just don't see the value necessarily in having a certified building for a couple $100,000 of commissioning. But we're usually locally sourcing things. We have a certified professional on our team as well, so how we acclimate and kind of place living areas and the amount of light and just the environmental conditions within all of our buildings, our individual homes and the amenity spaces is intentional on our end. So we're looking at kind of those principles to be wrapped out in every cooperative that we build.
And from a townhome perspective, ours are, we normally do a Green Pass certified, which is about a 20 to 25% higher than kind of, even though Minnesota code is already very extensive, the energy savings on that is usually that 20 to 25%. There really isn't a good economical program to take it any farther, because at that point you start to, so you're spending tens of thousands of dollars for very little gain, but I think that's the biggest thing for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Agnew.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for identifying a way to include some of the commercial with the live work component. I'm really excited about that. If you could speak to any experience you have in doing these types of projects, and if you have that experience, maybe even sample for me. I know these, it could ebb and flow over time, but what are some additional examples of what kind of work examples we could see within those sites?
I think at this point, we haven't done what I'll say the same as this. I mean, there's other areas where people have that opportunity. I think it's really driven by the site. It's the uniqueness of having that Eden Avenue, potentially being able to get those parallel stalls in there that allow for that opportunity. I think with, if you look at the Edina market, I mean, I can think of 100 different uses. I mean, if, accounting's office, legal office, someone that maybe works from their home, creates some product, maybe a small craft shop that, probably not a high volume retail site there just because you're only gonna have a few stalls. But I think the reality is it's kind of Pandora's box. I think anything that would be not what I'll call negative to the residents and probably not already restricted within the city is kind of an open use within that group. And I think it's really what they think. And I think what we're looking for is giving them the opportunity along with the look from the street and then having them hopefully fill that with some of those situations. I mean, with people living, working from home now, this is a perfect opportunity. You can get away from the spouse upstairs and whatever, and get down, and now you can go get some work done. So.
Yeah, and maybe this is something that I can take up offline afterwards with Carrie T or otherwise. But I'm also curious to know if you've researched, are there limits? Could there be a bakery, or is that where you were then talking about something like potentially the parking being the driving constraint within that? What type of process needs to go through in order to help support these businesses?
I think for something like that, we'd have to probably look at a parking study and also look at the level of ovens and venting space we need, because a lot of times you need a pretty good chase way all the way through the attic to make sure that those vents are working up there. I would think more, a smaller coffee shop that maybe doesn't need the drive-through and has a little bit of a nicer kind of a small-scale bakery and something, be more that way. I think you get into it doesn't fit the residential, I think, to go too strong if you're talking about full-blown bakery. I would think that would kind of be probably beyond the upper end of what I would expect here. So.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again for including that element. Just to make sure I'm understanding then, up in I think it was component C of the site, which is, I think, attached to the co-op, you use the phrase, I think, commercial-like, or making it feel commercial, but just to be explicit, that is only for residents and for those within the property. It would not be a public space in any way.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
But it'd have that visual, particularly because you're on one of the steeper parts of the slope on Arcadia, is we want it to feel like it has that street activation component, but you're right. It is privately owned, privately used, but it'll have that presence like it's trying to boost kind of what Hilltop is across the street.
How do you think you message that and prevent people from coming in and thinking that's a restaurant?
Yeah, I think depending on what we actually do with that plaza, and this is almost like the rendering we have on the bottom side of this particular slide, is wide open. There's probably similar elements that are probably better represented in kind of that pocket park where maybe there's some elevated planters that, again, you get that visual cue that it kind of looks like it's supportive of everything else that's along Arcadia with Opus's new project, the Hilltop, and kind of even the pocket park and kind of those things, that I think there will be some visual cues of this is a private space, but it's a visual benefit to people that are going kind of through this part of the neighborhood, whether that's driving or walking or biking or what have you.
I'm trying to understand a little bit more in depth the way the parking would function, both with respect to the senior co-op and the flats, the townhouses. Are the townhouses, are they parked, you know, when you come in that main curb cut off of Arcadia and you go to the left, I'm looking at the site plan, are you driving then at grade into your own garage behind the building, or is it
Yes.
you're
both-
going underground? Is nothing underground?
No, because at that point, their lowest garage for
Yep.
the co-op is at grade, probably, give or take a few feet, but not dramatically. And then as we turn south, you'd be able to turn into either one of your garages on those first two buildings. And like I said, then we
Yep.
kind of kept our parking for those residents inside. Because again, there's room for two cars in each front of each driveway besides. So we've made sure there's enough space between the buildings so you can still have a drive aisle, but you can actually have two guest spots besides besides the two cars in your garage.
So the two-car garage would be internal to the site, but, so, you know, you see that nice view along Eden, for example, that you've shown at street level. Behind, you would be seeing garage doors internally at all the
One
different.
level up, you would see the garage doors internally between those units, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
And
we
then-
have 1 minute left.
Okay, and then, underground parking for the co-op?
Yes, underground parking principally for all of the owners in there, so on 2 levels. So the lowest level has roughly 78 parking spaces shown in kind of the floor plans we included in the presentation. That hits the majority, and then we'll need somewhere in that 25 to 30 on the upper garage that's accessed on its own from a separate entrance that also has kind of, you know, a handful plus of guest visitor parking on kind of that radial parking courtyard.
Sure.
But that's how we're getting kind of our parking ratio around 1.6 to 1.
See that? Yep, and then the curb cuts are all on Arcadia, 2 curb cuts on
Two
Arcadia.
curb cuts on Arcadia, and trying to, again, strategically position them with the elevation so that we're coming in kind of as close to at grade, so to speak, with where we want those circulation points to be.
No curb cuts on Eden.
That's-
And then if somebody was living there, there's a little bit of an internal sidewalk system, it looks like, and then that external to the project sidewalk along Arcadia to get up to, I'm thinking about how do you get up to the walkway to go across on the bridge?
Yeah, so
You've
we
got a
have that
few.
sidewalk that's coming on the west side of Arcadia that doesn't exist today, and we're
Yep.
trying to kind of enhance that experience.
So if I lived there, I could, maybe there's some shortcuts internally, but I'm eventually going to get over the sidewalk on Arcadia to go up to the.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it, about it?
That's it.
All right, well, thanks for being here. Again, thank you for your interest in this.
Appreciate the opportunity, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Mr. Waldo.
We'll take a 5-minute break and I'll get our last presenters.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
All right, we'll proceed with our final presentation. This group is our largest group. It's a partnership of several different companies working together to put their proposal together. The lead is Onward Investors, and so I'll turn it over to Chris, and he'll introduce himself and the team. Same rules as before. This group has about 30 minutes to present and have your questions answered. So we've asked them to give about a 15-minute presentation, and that leaves about 15 minutes for question, answer, and discussion. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Great, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, we typed out a script.
Yeah,
so
before,
we're gonna
Chris, before you start, I just want to
please,
thank
Mr.
all
Mayor.
of you for your interest in this project. We had 5 distinct different views of how to use this property, all really very interesting. It's going to be some interesting conversations to come here amongst the HRA as we think about who to partner with. But we really want to make sure that you all appreciate the time and expense that you've gone through to be a competitor here and get from a group of 11 into the group of 5. So we thank you for all of that, and thank you for your continuing interest here.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think just the fact that 11 people responded to a RFP is pretty meaningful with respect to how valuable this opportunity is to us as well. So thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Like I said, we did script this out, so I'm going to actually get through this in our 15 minutes here. My name is Chris Osmondson. I'm with Onward Investors. We'll be going through the whole team and everything here. We're honored to present Grandview Terrace at Arcadia, a comprehensive mission-aligned redevelopment of 5146 Eden Avenue. Very cool. All right. Our vision is drawn directly from Edina's core values, as noted in numerous comprehensive plans as well as the request for proposals. We're focused on delivering a livable city with connected open space and walkable uses, while practicing stewardship via the use of public land, as well as public and private investment funds, and also incorporating sustainability, not only environmental, but just long-term generational resiliency for this space. As was mentioned, we do have a little bit of a larger team, but it is cohesive. I'll assure you that. So, it's kind of sort of an Avengers or a Justice League, if you will, depending on Marvel or DC Comics. Ebenezer. So. Onward, myself, will be going through these resumes later, but Ebenezer brings Minnesota's deepest experience in senior development and operations, even creating the very financing mechanism that is used to finance senior cooperative housing. Set Properties leads retail activation and placemaking, along with Underdog Hospitality as a local community-centric operator. You may be familiar with Dario, the restaurant concept in the North Loop, in the T3 building. And of course, BKV, which is a well-known entity to the city of Edina, as well as many other Twin Cities municipalities, delivers thoughtful, high-impact projects. Just a quick diagram to try to make this a little bit more familiar. This represents the structure of the development team. Each real estate asset type, so the senior cooperative, the senior active affordable housing, and the community food and beverage concept elements are all paired with a proven specialized developer and or partner. Onward will be the lead developer, and then we are also working through the senior affordable housing concept that we have proposed here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Palkowicz, who's the senior design leader at the BKV Group, and he's going to walk through our vision with architecture, landscape, and the scale of the project. Go ahead,
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, commissioners. Glad to be here today. Our concept takes into account numerous city goals, including the goals of the RFP, the Pillars of Edina, and the Grandview guiding principles overall. And Mike Critch and I of BKV Group are quite familiar with the Grandview Guiding Principles and some of these other city goals, as we just recently worked on the Mason Green project just across the parking lot here. And the concept you're going to see today is just merely a starting point. It's our goal to work hand in hand with the city as the development progresses. We didn't really want to overdevelop it. That's why you'll see mainly white boxes here, because we really want input from key stakeholders, from the city, from the neighbors, from everyone around to really make this a great project overall. With these goals in mind, our broad development team created a shared vision for the development. Our concept creates a high-quality mixed-use development, including a 60-unit senior co-op with attainable price points, a 100-unit 55-plus affordable senior housing building, an event center and restaurant, and a corner shared green that will be open to the public. The designs of the building focus on creating vibrant, walkable, life-filled spaces. And what we incorporated into it was, we really looked at focusing on active street fronts. And that includes the walk-up townhomes. Please go back a slide if you would here. Walk-up townhomes that you see in the red on the diagram, and the street-facing lobbies on the two larger buildings. The blue building is the restaurant event center, and that's really tucked up near the street as well to have continue that kind of walkable experience and presence. And then up in the top right corner is the open green space that you'll see more in the next couple slides. And then lastly, I just want to say sustainable design was a thought throughout the design, and we can speak about that a little bit more, but it's something that is a piece on each step we make on the decisions, but not necessarily fully ironed out as we're early in the development process. Okay. Going to a few points on key site organization here. Starting up in the top right corner is our community green space. We're showing some, this is just very preliminary what we're thinking about, but proposing some sculptures and a small amphitheater. And that's directly connected to the pathway and the art bridge going across the railroad tracks as well. And then it really centrally locates that green space as well for the other buildings around in the center of the district. The event center is just immediately to the south of that, and that will be able to utilize the green space for some of the events as well, shared overall. And then we're thoughtful in the way that we approach the parking as well, that you can see most of the parking is to the rear of the event center space. There's a little bit of a drop off on the side, and then much of the parking, I'll show you in a future slide, is really buried into what will be the side of the hill as well. The affordable building is the centrally located building, and then the co-op is the south building with views to the ball fields. And just one thing to point out, the co-op and the affordable building have a shared entry court off of Arcadia, and that's really to minimize curb cuts and enhance the overall pedestrian experience and vitality of the area. The resident courtyards are very gracious, as you can see overall, and you can just get a further sense from the bird's eyes. Although we are proposing a nice blend of projects, it is still very open and green. A couple of pedestrian level views to just show just a little bit more detail of our development. The upper one is a feel of the walk-up units along Eden Avenue, and this incorporates porches and bays and movement along the exterior to create a rich visual experience overall. And then you can see that the upper portion of the residence is stepped back from that about 30 feet overall. On the lower image, it's just a preliminary image of the corner green as well, just to give a little feel of potentially what that may feel like and the connection to the existing infrastructure that the city's already put into it. And then lastly, just a couple last details we want to highlight. On the upper building section, we really thought about the overall grade change along the site and how to incorporate these buildings into it in a thoughtful way and terrace them up to meet the street as it moves up. So what we've done is we've built the parking primarily into the hill, but you see some of it is above the hill a little bit here too. That's so that all the units are above the railroad tracks by at least a story. We didn't want anyone with a unit down by the tracks. But within that, the lower left image then shows when you are starting to become above grade, that all of the parking is buried in the back, that we're wrapped with townhomes and lobby along the street-facing sides. So that way it'll be an active experience throughout. And then lastly, in the bottom right, you can see that the residents are really stepped back overall from the townhomes. So with that, lastly, we really thought of our development as kind of right-sizing it to not maximizing the density, but right-sizing it to fulfill the vision of the Grandview District Master Plan. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
A few other additional elements to the proposal. Thanks for that overview, Chris, much appreciated. I'll briefly walk through the financial concepts and just the timing of the project. The proposed acquisition price is $4 million. We would additionally seek to create a tax increment financing district, which would mainly serve to facilitate some of the on-site parking infrastructure that was mentioned, which is currently buried underneath the Senior Active Affordable Project, as well as just really enhancing the pedestrian experience along Eden and Arcadia so that we can ultimately get up into kind of the apron where the pedestrian crossing is at the railway connection. And if we had some added dollar availability from that, we would also seek to kind of look at some micro multimodal options. We've looked at some like e-bike sharing systems and things like that to really kind of facilitate like a 15-minute city concept. While our proposal doesn't explicitly state this, I just wanted to note at least the affordable project will be utilizing prevailing wage rates. That's a requirement with Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, and I think it's important just to understand that within that endeavor. And overall, with respect to the timeline, our team would be looking to be awarded the RFP here in the third quarter of 2025. And then just to really fast forward, we would expect to deliver all elements of the completed project in the first quarter, probably late first quarter of 2028. One thing I wanted to briefly touch on, just because I know that it could potentially be a future conversation starter, is the timing on low-income housing tax credit projects. They do take some patience. However, what we would seek to do is make an application to Minnesota Management and Budget to secure bonding as soon as we could, most likely in the first quarter of 2026. And essentially that gets you on the wait list so that we could prepare to be ready to execute on the low-income housing project as soon as we were allocated bonds. And that's really the critical path. The rest of the financing elements we can bring along in time. And I think overall our timeline is realistic. In summary, we're presenting a vibrant, walkable, life-filled place that is inclusive of many spaces and ages. It meets various community needs for this location and complements a lot of the existing infrastructure that has been already invested in. And we're creating more neighborhood permeability with natural space and wayfinding and fulfilling the Grandview District vision that's been around for, maybe 20 years, at least 10. So now we're just going to do a brief team introduction so you can see that we do have the chutzpah to execute on this. You'll hear from myself, followed by Susan and Josh with Ebenezer and Astoria, as well as Lamar from Set Properties and Stephen from Underdog Hospitality, who will walk through the food and beverage concept and real estate, and we'll close with BKV's senior leadership team. Onward Investors is a privately held real estate firm with a 15-year track record here, and most of the founders actually date back significantly further than that 15-year track record. We have investments and developments across multiple asset classes, pretty much all of the ones that you could think of, and we bring an institutional platform with local roots and capital, focused on building legacy projects that serve both the investors and the communities that we operate in. My specific background includes structuring public and private partnerships such as the Berkman Apartments in Rochester, Minnesota, Ratio Apartments in Columbia Heights, Chorus Apartments in Hopkins, Minnesota. These are all projects that leverage scarce municipal resources for inclusive and sustainable outcomes. The site is also in my backyard. I'm technically in Southwest Minneapolis, but I can throw a football into Edina. And we view this as, these opportunities are long-term. We feel that they provide stewardship for us to be working and continue working in the city of Edina itself. With that, I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thanks, Mr. Osmundson.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. I'm Susan Farr, and I'm the VP of Business Development at Ebenezer, and I'm very proud to be here, and you should be all so excited. We love your land. Just want you to know that I personally have built 58 senior buildings since my career, since college, so I'm very excited about that. And we were the first senior, well, that will be, sorry, I'm getting too excited here. But just want you to know, Ebenezer's been around over 100 years. We're part of Fairview. We merged with Fairview in 1995. We love that we have that TCU hospital connection. And we have over 110 locations in 6 different states, and we serve over 14,000 seniors. And in our corporate office here in Edina, which not all our properties are here, of course, we have 4,700 employees. So can you just go back 1 second? Yep. Okay, we have 60 co-ops. We're the largest co-op management company in the nation. We have 50 communities that we've developed with Ebenezer, 4.15 million, and we are ranked 13 in the nation for the senior housing provider in our management company. Next, Chris. So here's just some of our projects just in Edina, and I've had the privilege of working with the mayor and commissioners. It has been great. Aurora on France, York Gardens. 7500 York is probably our standout here. That is the first cooperative in the nation that was designed with a very smart group of people. And it's a HUD 213 loan, which all these people now use for these co-ops. That has a 20-year wait list for some of the 2-bedroom apartments, 10-year wait list for the smaller 2 bedrooms. And we still manage that to this day. But we are very excited about that and happy that other people have also piggybacked on that. But we have 250 people in our corporate office here in Edina, and that is for our management arm of all of these properties. We also manage Vernon Terrace, and of course I mentioned we're part of Fairview. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Farr.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you here today. I am here representing Leap Development Company and Astoria Cooperatives. I've spent just about 15 years building more than 15 senior cooperatives communities in the Midwest across multiple brands. Honored to be partnering with Ebenezer on the Astoria Cooperative brand itself. That experience has shown us that cooperatives don't just serve seniors. They actually really do strengthen neighborhoods, and we've seen that time and time again on the projects we've developed. Oftentimes about 80% of the members that move into a cooperative are vacating homes directly in the zip code where that project is being built. And so it's not just meeting or bringing folks in, it's meeting a local need in a sustainable way. Astoria cooperatives are designed to foster pride and ownership, not just within the building, but within the surrounding community as well. When older residents, as I touched on just a moment ago, move into Astoria, they free up existing home stock for young families. And that really does create a natural and intergenerational cycle that keeps neighborhoods vibrant and rooted. Astoria Grandview Terrace at Arcadia, that's a bit of a mouthful, Chris, we might have to talk about that, is the next evolution of senior cooperative living, really drawing on our experience as well as Ebenezer's experience and legacy, as Susan mentioned, the largest senior cooperative management company in the nation. So our group together, combined with our efforts and expertise, really feel like we're not building just housing. We do believe that we're building community, stability, and opportunity on this site here in Edina. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Lamar?
Well, thank you, and good morning, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to collaborate with you all this morning. My name is Lamar Newbern, and I'm a founding partner of Set Properties, a boutique commercial real estate brokerage and advisory firm with more than 4 decades of combined experience throughout the Twin Cities, as well as throughout the Mountain West. We are honored to serve as a co-development partner for Grandview Terrace at Arcadia alongside this exceptional team before you today. And when selected, look forward to contributing to the future of this significant site within Edina's Grandview District. Our focus today is on the concept visioning for the approximately 9,000 square foot food and beverage, or F&B, space within Grandview Terrace at Arcadia. We are in active conversations with both members of our surrounding community as well as prominent restaurant groups in the area. One primary conclusion from our conversations thus far that rings true is the desire for an interconnected, welcoming, community-oriented space that incorporates the existing infrastructure already in place and facilitates gatherings throughout the day and across all 4 seasons. We have listened to this feedback and are committed to cultivating a dynamic environment that meets the needs of the community both today and far into the future. To help bring this vision to life, we are collaborating with Underdog Hospitality, the team behind Dario Restaurant in the North Loop, which was previously mentioned. I am very excited to invite Stephen Rowe, managing partner of Underdog, to share more thoughts about our proposed concept and what it means for our community. Stephen?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Newbern. Mr. Rowe, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about the food and beverage concept that we'd like to place here. And the name is the Arcadia Bar and Cafe and the Conservatory on Eden. Starting with the cafe and bar, service would be grab and go and coffee in the morning. We'd move on to full restaurant service in the afternoon and evening. And this is a restaurant that would serve about 120 seats inside and 48 outside, so kind of a moderate-sized restaurant. But what's really, really exciting about the opportunity here is the restaurant concept that would be placed on top of the event center, so that would allow for semi-panoramic views all around the restaurant, and that's really great. The restaurant that I own right now, we have gigantic windows, but we don't have the opportunity to see kind of above, and with an adjoining courtyard and amphitheater, it presents like a really, really exciting opportunity. When we think about summer views, you know, you've got all this wonderful sunlight, and in the winter, you've got the blanketing of snow. We just want to create a nice, vibrant, fresh and clean-looking restaurant. On the bottom of the restaurant, we have the Conservatory on Eden, which is meant to be a modular event center. And what that means is, instead of having fixed walls and kind of set rooms, you have sliding walls and sliding spaces so that you can accommodate smaller groups, maybe a smaller wedding party at the same time as a graduation party on the other side. And again, what's really exciting about this project is we kind of envision a group starting with like a nice happy hour and drinks in the restaurant, having a ceremony outside, and then coming in to the event center for a reception. And you know, that goes for even retirement parties, corporate events. Really want to embrace this open air feel and create natural views and a warm, inviting space for all sorts of members of the community. Now, the nice thing about having an in-house food and beverage team with an event center is that you can create really great synergy in terms of what you serve and seasonality, and really, really locking in and creating a consistent experience for the people that come in for dinner and the people that come in for events, so that nobody feels like they're getting the short end of the stick. Everybody's getting a high quality experience, and everybody can kind of feel the beauty of the room, the food, and the atmosphere. We really want to create like a very, very light, buoyant space here, instead of it being kind of like a darker kind of wood and steel type of restaurant. Another element that I just want to touch on is the aesthetic of the restaurant itself. And it's a kind of like a bright market European feel. We have this bar that not only serves coffee, but again, the grab and go in the morning, and then a nice open dining room. And with that being said, I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rowe.
We got about 5 minutes left. Yeah.
All right. I'll go for less than 1 minute. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Critch. I'm President and Senior Partner for BKV Group. Our company was founded over 47 years ago in the Twin Cities. We have worked prolifically both locally and nationally on over 400 projects in the public and private sectors for this entire period, with a basic mission to enrich lives and strengthen communities. Our holistic practice with full services propels us to deliver the highest quality outcomes. Specific to the city of Edina, if you want to click to the next slide, Chris, we know how to realize the city's and the community's goals. I say this because over 20 years ago, then council member and now Mayor Hovland has challenged BKV over and over again to do our best work for the city. I've had personal conversations for making that clear, and I believe we have delivered on that promise with projects such as the Edina City Hall and Police Building that we're sitting in, our One Southdale Place, the Fred, Maison Green, and most recently Fire Station Number 2. We are committed and dedicated to fulfilling this critical piece of the Grandview Master Plan to take it from a vision to a reality. With that, we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, the amount of pervious surface, and I think you touched on environmentalism and sustainable, so I won't ask that question, but how much pervious surface are we talking about?
We're looking about 35 to 40% right now, is just for where we're laid out, but as I said, we're very preliminary and flexible.
Okay, thank you.
Council Member Commissioner Risser.
How large, like square footage, are you estimating the units that are 50% AMI, 60% AMI, 80% AMI?
Are those, Commissioner, are those within the affordable housing concept?
Right.
Or?
Yeah.
Well, the size wouldn't be dictated by the area median income affordability. So, I mean, if it's a one bedroom, it would likely be approximately 700 square feet to 800 square feet. If it's a 2 bedroom, it would be approximately 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. But we would be required to distribute the affordability throughout the building in a pro rata manner.
Right. I'm just seeing concepts for affordable houses or affordable rentals, and they're really small, and then I look at the market rate prices for a small unit, and so that's what I'm wrestling with right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so this would be a senior affordable concept, so we need to make them congruent with what would otherwise be offered in the marketplace. So this isn't going to be an urban concept where we're going for like a micro unit concept. It would be comparable to any other senior living facility.
Thank you.
Commissioner Agnew.
Thank you, and thank you for the great collaboration across so many different folks. I do really appreciate that. My questions were only going to be about the event center, because I think that that's something that's really unique and was exciting to see, but you gave a really good overview. I wanted to know, what might be here, give me some of that inspiration. So thank you for going through that. I don't have any direct questions right now, but overall, I wanted to thank you again for pulling the presentation together. This has been really great.
I'm going to segue right off of that, because I'd like to understand a little bit better what you see with respect to this event center, and is it something that is owned privately, or is it something that we own that you use and operate, or what were your thoughts there?
I can elaborate on that just in sort of I guess being the lead developer. But I think the intent was we didn't necessarily want to, lay off that element to the city and be respectful of the fact that we would ultimately be responsible for the operations and the elements of that. But the location of it in being on the north side and just adjacent to the pedestrian facilities for the crossing, we do want to emphasize we'd like to figure out how to make it a public-private element that could be utilized for more than just private events, and we're really excited about that location because I don't know if you've been in Jerry's, right? It's like the craziest place I've ever been. We want to figure out how to get people from, I don't know if you can do it, but just to walk up that hill and come across that pedestrian crossing and come to here, and then they can go to Hilltop. So it's just this natural confluence. And yeah, we really hope it is a kind of a public-private endeavor, but it would be undertaken by us with quite a bit of flexibility, I imagine, in a development agreement.
Okay.
Yes, and I would just add onto that obviously we're very much hoping to be very open and collaborative with you all commissioners and city council throughout that whole process. So open, collaborative, flexible, and listening to the community to serve the community in the best way possible.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Newbern. Mr. Osmundson, let's talk financing quickly here. We got a couple minutes.
Absolutely.
We're on the mark, I guess. Okay, 1 minute. So you're thinking about $4 million, plus you said you're going to need some TIF, and then I heard you talking about Minnesota Management and Budget and going to get some bonding money. I didn't hear you talk about Minnesota Housing Finance. All of that takes time. What are we thinking about here, and how to, what portion of that becomes tax increment financing on the $4 million? I guess we're talking about the structured parking. The architects may have some rough idea what that number is based on their knowledge of the cost per stall.
Sure.
But the other parts of it I'm interested in as well as to if you have to go get other public funds to fund the affordable part of it, how long is that going to take?
So we would look to, specifically, let me break it down. So if we were going to look at the tax increment financing piece, most of that increment is derived by the senior cooperative housing as well as the retail concept. So the district would be for the whole 3 parcels that's envisioned. And then we would be using it for eligible uses of parking and landscape activation. The approximate value that I put on that from a present value perspective was $4.4 million over the course of anywhere from 15 to 25 years. If we then look at specifically the low-income housing tax credit process, it is a more patient process. However, what I was referencing is the bonding process is just the normal process that you go through for a tax credit project. The critical path is securing those bonds. After that, the ability to get tax credits and things like that is a very liquid environment. And what happens is if we were to make an application in January of 2026, you have a year and a half to receive those bonds. We would likely, there's been some federal changes that will make it easier to receive those bonds as opposed to kind of the stacking mechanism that's been going on for about the last 7 to 8 years. And so the timeline of opening everything in Q1 of 2028 is realistic, and it assumes that we potentially are, I'll say waiting, it's not the correct word, but that we are waiting to get those bonds, and we would basically have everything else in place to start right there. The senior cooperative housing, that is a HUD debt concept, and then the equity comes from the purchasers. So it is actually more of a captive financing capital stack. You don't suffer from some of the macroeconomic kind of convulsions that have been recently happening where projects have just stopped and died. There's liquidity. It just kind of depends on what the pricing elements are of that. So hopefully that's helpful.
So the time horizon then for starting construction would be when and completion would be when?
So let's just say the longest possible time would be from, we would receive bonds on the LIHTC opportunity, let's say in January of 2027. So then we have an approximately year to build that, and so that puts us right into that first quarter of 2028. At 100 units, it's probably anywhere from a 12 to 15-month construction schedule.
And in the meantime, you're working on the other component parts?
Yep, absolutely. So the senior cooperative has a different sale process that.
All right, that helps.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Osmondson. Thanks to your entire team. Again, thank you so much for being interested in being in Edina. We really appreciate it. And of course, we know Ebenezer's been here for a long time and doing a good job on everything they manage, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, so that was our fifth presentation for the morning. So it's been a long morning. What we had in mind was to take a break from the public meeting and adjourn and discuss what you just heard. The potential sale of real estate is one of those rare situations where we can adjourn the public meeting and have the private conversation about price point and which is the proposal that might be the best fit. We can have that in a closed setting. Can't make any decisions there, no final actions, but it does provide a sense of privacy and the ability for the city to still negotiate the best price and the best project. So that'd be my recommendation, to adjourn to a closed session and discuss what we just heard.
All right, so give us a couple minutes for a break, and then we'll go to that notion. I think we're all prepared for that. I think having this conversation fresh in time, I wish our colleague Commissioner Pierce was here, but nonetheless, the four of us will have, I think, a robust conversation on this. So should we take 5 minutes for a break and then reconvene at 10:15?
Yeah.
What?
Need a motion to go into closed session.
Before we take the break?
Well, or table for right now, right? Isn't that what we're going to do?
I mean, we've just been taking breaks. Why can't we take a break and then go into closed session? I mean, I don't want to.
It might be easiest to make the motion now to go to closed
All right,
session.
let's do that.
And then on your way to the closed session.
I'm not fussy about process. If that you think's the best way to do it, that's fine. Is there a motion to go into closed session as permitted by Minnesota statutes 13D.05 subdivision 3 to review and discuss the proposals for the sale of land at 5146 Eden Avenue?
So moved.
I second.
We got a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Agnew to go into closed session to discuss the proposals for the sale of land at 5146 Eden Avenue. Any further discussion? All those in favor of going into closed session for that purpose, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We will now be in closed session for purposes of that conversation and take just a short break before we start that conversation in earnest.